Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham, and as you can see, this is the Mike Graham Show. There's the sign, and there's the other sign over there, the clock. By the way, I want to say thank you to Mr. Burgess for what you can see behind me, that map that was provided there, that one. Even though it doesn't have the Shetlands, or is it Orkney it doesn't have?
Yeah, Shetlands.
Shetlands doesn't have the Isle of Man apparently either, and also doesn't have the Isle of Wight. But for those of you who don't care about that sort of thing, we are going to be sticking pins in it because the map, the idea of the map is to show where we've been and where we're going, rather than where people are actually listening from. So that'll be interesting. Russell Quirk is here. Very good morning to you, Mr. Quirk.
Good morning.
Great to see you. We've got so much to talk about this morning, including, of course, the Nicholas Sturgeon all-you-can-eat buffet, where you could basically go into a shop and just buy everything. The list of stuff that they bought or that he bought is quite extraordinary. And everybody is going, yeah, do you really think that she didn't have a clue?
Can you imagine?
Like the Jaguar on the drive. Well, a lot of people doing this thing, and I'm sure you could do the same. You know, if you suddenly started turning up at home with a new car, or, you know, some brand new, you know, boots, or, you know, loads of pens that cost thousands of pounds, you think Mrs. Quirk might go, what have you been doing?
I go to great efforts to hide some of my cars, and she still finds them.
Yeah.
She does still find them. So, look, either Nicholas Sturgeon, I don't know, has got something wrong with her senses in terms of her eyes and ears.
She was very busy, apparently.
Yeah, very busy. Or she might not be telling the truth, perhaps. Because I don't see how it's at all feasible that this isn't just little stuff. This isn't like, I don't know, a pair of earrings or something.
No.
As I'm sure we'll get to later on, there's a huge list. And some of this stuff is rather massive because it's motorhomes and cars.
Well, the motorhome that sat on the front sort of a drive of, was it her mother-in-law's place?
Yeah.
Where they went on a regular basis.
Visited.
I was watching a guy from the Times yesterday talking about it in Scotland, who said, you know, I've been to the Sturgeon's house, the place that they dug up with all the kind of forensic, you know, tents and everything else. And he said, you know, they bought this robot, you know, lawnmower. The garden's not big enough to put that in there. Yeah. So what were they using that for?
No, exactly. It would be a point of conversation, would it not? If you turn up for Sunday lunch at your husband's mother's house, and there's a brand new £125,000 motorhome, which is probably worth more than the house that they were visiting for lunch.
Yeah.
You might kind of pay reference to it, I would imagine, on the way in.
I was just looking after it for someone.
Yeah.
Or,
hey, Mum, what's this thing?
What are you doing with
it passed her by because she's so busy on the way in.
I've started to do a world tour with AC/DC. I mean, you know, the number of ridiculous things.
I'm looking after it for a neighbour.
I'm looking for ages. Yeah, I've had it for ages. You've only just noticed.
Not noticed
you never notice anything. I mean, I get that all the time. Where I went home at Easter at one point down in Sussex, and I was apparently I was upbraided for not noticing the Easter egg tree, which was apparently made outside. Which I hadn't spotted.
I don't notice sometimes when my wife's had her hair done, but I would notice.
That's dangerous.
But I would notice if she bought a motorhome.
Yes, I mean I think there is a difference, isn't there? You know, I'm sorry I didn't notice the new highlights and the colours are slightly different from what it was yesterday.
But what's the RV on the drive?
But, you know, there's a big Winnebago outside, which seems to be full of, you know, groupies and rock stars and all the rest of it. I mean, it is incredible. And again, people are saying, surely, apart from anything else, which gives you a clue as to how their relationship was, apart from anything else, most spouses, whether they be male or female, would think, are you buying this stuff for somebody I don't know?
Yeah.
You know, are you buying, like, for example, if you look at the list of things, and I think we may give you a little opportunity to read out some of these things.
Well, I've got a list here if you want it.
Yeah, I think you should do it. But even if I just mention a couple of things, a Celestron Nexstar 8SE computerized Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. 1,199 quid.
I've got one of those.
Have you? Yeah, of course you have.
Did you pay for it?
Of course you have.
Did you embezzle the funds for it, Pooch?
Does Mrs. Pooch know about that? Or have you hidden it from her? Right. Then you've got the video games FIFA 2014 and Battlefield 4, as well as a PlayStation 3 console, 3 Wusthof manicure sets. What's he doing with those?
What?
Joseph bread bin, 60 quid. Beatles special edition fountain pen. He spent a lot of money on fountain pens.
Well, he bought expensive Mont Blanc fountain pens, including one.
Yeah.
One pen cost £4,000.
Wow.
Yeah, £4,000 for a pen. She didn't notice that, apparently. I mean, what did he do with this stuff? Hiding it? Did he bury it in the garden?
Well, that's why they were digging the garden up, presumably.
But what is hard to bury in the garden is an £81,000 Jaguar I-Pace SUV.
What are you doing out there? I'm just digging a hole for the Jaguar.
And also, while you're down there in that hole, could you see if you could secrete away a Volkswagen Golf, please?
Amazing. All right, should we do it? Should we do the thing we've prepared?
Yeah, well, yeah, this is
This doesn't always go as well as it's meant to, but anyway, here we go. Russell Quirk with the shopping list of Peter Murrell.
This is in the style of Sale of the Century. You remember that with Nicholas Parsons? Live from Glasgow, it's Steal of the Century with your host, Peter Murrell. Okay, here we go. Here's the list. A £124,550 Niceman and Bischoff S-Move 7.4e motorhome, an £81,000 Jaguar I-Pace SUV, a £33,000 Volkswagen Golf, luxury watches including 2 Braymonts costing £9,350, expensive £1,495 jewellery box, and wait for it, £2,600 worth of salt and pepper shakers. Because everyone needs a pair of £2,000
of
salt
course.
and pepper shakers.
Yes.
Electronics, entertainment products, iPads, Kindles, Xbox, PlayStation consoles, a Nintendo Switch, video games, high-end kitchen and home goods, including a Jura Giga 5 coffee machine. And again, Nicola Sturgeon didn't notice that, has never had a cup of coffee made through it. Le Creuset items, sorry, am I running out of time? And a robotic lawnmower, as you rightly mentioned.
Cuddly toy.
Cuddly toy, fondue
toy. Yeah, I mean, there's
Do you remember, Mike?
Eh?
How many do you remember?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I remember the £4,000 pen. Can I have that?
Yeah.
Along with the cuddly
And the salt
toy.
and pepper shakers.
And the salt and pepper shakers, obviously. I'd like
Yeah.
those.
Bejeweled.
There is apparently, there's a picture doing the rounds, and I don't know whether it's a real picture or whether it's AI, you never really know these days, of Nicola Sturgeon supposedly using the coffee machine, or one of the coffee machines that he bought, because he bought a few, to make a cup of coffee while she's being interviewed by somebody. So, I mean, that would kind of put her bang to rights, wouldn't
Literally
it?
hiding in plain sight.
I didn't know there was, there's a new coffee machine. You know, if I came in here, right, and there was a new coffee machine, eh?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is. How good is Pooch, by the way?
Yeah. I mean, look, how resourceful.
That's amazing.
That is the Jura Giga 5 coffee machine right there. Right there.
It also doubles as a Winnebago.
But did she also not have any sense of what the household finances were? So whatever she's earning, whatever Peter was earning as the CEO of the SNP, it's a combined £200,000 or whatever.
Yes.
Surely she should have realised that all of this stuff was rather out of kilter with their income. Surely.
Well, there are two things to say here, I think, and one of them is they clearly were living separate lives, right? The suggestion being that he is not.
He was in the motorhome, was he?
Well, he may well have been in the motorhome, but it was not a marriage, shall we say, a tradition of tradition. She obviously has been very vague about her sexuality. I don't really care whether she's a lesbian or not, but the suggestion is that she might well be, and she hasn't denied it. And he may well not be straight either. I don't know. But the point is that apparently they didn't live as man and wife.
Okay.
And so she said she was very busy all the time. And when she came home, she didn't really notice any of this stuff. I mean, believe that or not.
So do we expect in the next few days for both of them, particularly her, to start playing certain victim cards in order to mitigate the problem that they now have and that she now has?
Yeah.
So mental health, I guess we'll see that, won't we? Anxiety, stress, harassment, that will be the next game played. And then, of course, sexuality.
Yeah.
It's the standard left playbook, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're just victimising me now because, you know, I'm not, like other women or something like that. Well, we've got a couple of clips for you, right? First one, this is Nicola Sturgeon back in 2021 talking about the finances of the SNP.
I'm not concerned about the party's finances. The finances of the SNP are independently audited. Our accounts are sent to the Electoral Commission in common with other parties and of course published, so there's full scrutiny around that. Money hasn't gone missing. All money goes through the SNP accounts, independently and fully audited. We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Our accounts are managed on a cash flow basis, but every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence.
Yes. There isn't any money missing, you say? Well, apparently there's £400,000 missing.
Do you think they use the same auditors as Enron?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. How about this, though? This is Humza Yusuf, or Useless, as he was known, talking about how great Peter Murrell is.
Many in the SNP are calling for Peter Murrell, the chief executive and the husband of Nicola Sturgeon, to stand aside because of all the investigations that have been going on into party finances. Do you support them?
No, Peter Murrell's a proven winner. Peter Murrell's won election after election after election for the SNP and helped to win election after election. He's a proven winner. What Peter Murrell chooses to do, of course, is a matter entirely for him, and I would respect that if I was party leader, but certainly there'd be no pressure.
You want him to stay on?
I want him to, it's his choice in terms of what he does, but anybody that doesn't want a proven winner on their side, particularly when you're in politics, I think that would be a little bit daft.
That would be a little bit daft to get rid of him because he's a proven winner.
He's a proven winner. He's about to win a massive prize, which is a huge prison sentence.
I mean, somebody said this yesterday, and I think because it's Scotland, people don't quite sort of grasp what it's like up there. It's a very, very small world. You know, when I was working up there as an editor of the Daily Mirror, you know, you see all the same people at all the same events. You know, it's a bit like, I mean, I don't want to be disparaging towards Essex, but, you know, if you go into the political world of Essex, you probably run into all the same people at all the same dues. You know what I mean? Scotland is like that.
It's like that.
Right? It's no bigger. And so the journalists, the politicians, and somebody said yesterday, I was watching one of the news shows, who said, you know, imagine the situation, basically, if Keir Starmer's wife, Vic, as he calls her, was put in charge of the Labour Party's finances, and then suddenly loads of Winnebagos started turning up in Downing Street, or, you know, police started, you know, rummaging around in the garden. You know, that's the gravity of the story.
I think we also need to understand and accept that, you know, we poke our fingers at the Uni Party in terms of their kind of uselessness and their moral corruption, and I think that's well proven now. But we need to make sure that we also categorise and include the SNP as part of that kind of tainted Uni-Party thing, right? Because they are, as this demonstrates, every bit as much to blame as the rest of the career politicians that I think have sought to basically destroy the country by way of them being career politicians for the last 20 or 30 years. This is very indicative of it. Look, Peter Murrell will get, I would imagine, a huge and lengthy prison sentence, and so he should.
Well, it's a very, very serious crime that he's committed. And the fact, again, if you imagine it being, you know, the spouse of the Prime Minister being led away from a courtroom in handcuffs, which is what he was yesterday. He pleaded guilty, and you have to say some questions are being asked about that as well, because, you know, there's no trial if you plead guilty. And for a long time, he must have sort of used subterfuge and denial all the way through the investigation in order to get to court in the first place. And then suddenly he pleads guilty and, we don't get to find out anything else.
It's not a stretch, is it, to imagine that might be because he wants to protect Nicola Sturgeon on the basis that she perhaps knew more than she's letting on.
Exactly.
And in court, by way of disclosure and cross-examination, all of that stuff would come out. Absolutely.
And Joanna Cherry, who is a member of the SNP but was a kind of supporter of Alex Salmond and is a very well-respected KC, has already come out and said we need to do a proper investigation into what Nicola Sturgeon knew when she knew it. And as often is the case, when you see ridicule being put on somebody's image, and you see, I don't know if you've seen this is the front page of the Daily Record today. They've done Nicola Sturgeon up as Manuel. Right?
I know nothing.
I know nothing. And it's the bottom right there.
I know nothing.
Which is the best Daily Record front page I think I've seen in many a year. Normally it's pretty awful. And of course they are, yes, a Labour supporting newspaper, but nevertheless the SNP brand now is forever tainted because they haven't had they haven't managed to deliver independence. They've delivered what can only be described as a kind of Louis XIV style, you know, let them eat cake scenario, where we're all going to live high in the hole. Because the other thing that people forget is that all of this money was donated to the SNP by people who actually thought they were giving it to help them get independence.
No, exactly. And the other thing is, of course, this is very reminiscent of what we've also criticised Keir Starmer for in recent weeks and months in terms of his turning a blind eye to things on the basis that Keir Starmer's defence on many occasions has been, no one told me. I had no idea, didn't know about Mandelson, didn't know about anything. And we're seeing the same defence here from Nicola Sturgeon. No one told me, I knew nothing. You know, no one actually told me that the coffee machine I was using every morning, as well as the motorhome and the watches and the bejewelled Mont Blanc pens, no one actually told me that they were from embezzled funds.
They may have been
so therefore
obtained
it's
illegally.
What do they say about the innocence or ignorance rather is no defence in law? And that's very true in this instance.
It really is. And look at John Swinney. This is John Swinney yesterday, right? Bending the rules of credibility by making out that, you know, he believes the story. Check it out.
Sturgeon told SNP members in 2021 not to ask questions about the SNP's finances. She was very adamant money hasn't gone missing. We now know those party members were asking legitimate questions. Will you apologise to those members? Do you think Nicola Sturgeon herself was misled and is a victim?
Nicola Sturgeon has made clear in her statement, I suspect you will have seen that today, that she was unaware of any of these issues.
Can I ask if you believe that?
I do believe that, yes. I do believe that. And I think the statement that Nicola has made conveys the depth of her personal agony about this. And I believe that, and I accept that, and I acknowledge that, because it is, if I feel as sore as I feel today, Catherine, I can't begin to imagine how Nicola Sturgeon feels. So,
how do you think the people who raised valid concerns feel, though? And just once again, will you apologise to those people in your party?
I think what I would say to people is that we've got to have good governance arrangements in place, and that's exactly what the SNP has got, with transparent financial reporting on a regular basis to our party executive, with a variety of different controls in place to ensure that the planning and the spending of our resources is done effectively to meet the needs of our campaigns and the purpose for which the money is raised.
Transparent financial reporting.
Yeah.
And this is the same box of tricks they tried on Starmer, wasn't it? Where they said, oh, you've got to feel a bit sorry for Keir Starmer with all these people saying how horrible he is and how terrible he is. He wants you to feel sorry for Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
She must be feeling a lot of pain this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, really? Well, maybe you take a nice cup of coffee from that nice machine. Because there's no suggestion that any of this stuff's been returned.
Well, I was going to say, what happens in terms of the £400,000 being paid back to those, to the SNP and the donors that donated?
Yeah, well, I've heard, again, voices in Scotland saying this money should be returned to the people who gave it to the SNP.
Well, you would imagine.
So where are you going to get that from?
Well, if Nicola Sturgeon jointly owns property or properties with Peter Murrell, which as a married couple you'd imagine that they do, then one would imagine that those properties would have to be forcibly sold and the equity taken to repay
I don't see
the
why
people
not.
that have lost out. Because they, I mean, look, donating to the SNP might be a stupid thing to do, but you have a right to do it, and you also have a right to expect that money to be spent properly and wisely, despite the fact that, as you say, the SNP now is rather an irrelevant party on the basis that it stands for Scottish independence, which is a boat that's sailed.
Yeah, and it did not win a majority in the Scottish Parliament in the most recent elections just last month. Well, this month, actually. Feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? I mean, you probably know that more than anyone because you're now running Essex Council or something ridiculous.
Part of a team.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know... they didn't win because they were full of the joys of spring before the election. And interestingly enough, this case didn't happen before the election. Because imagine if this hearing had happened on May the 3rd.
Yeah, and the confession.
Before May the 7th, 4 days before. Yeah. So that, in fact, that might have had some bearing on how many votes they got, right? But one of the things that they didn't do was they did not get a majority because they said, if we get a majority government, we will take that as a sign that we should have a second referendum. And now they didn't get that, so now they're lost forever.
Well, they keep losing that narrative, don't they? You know,
and they're actually frightened of having a second referendum now because if they did have one and they lost the second referendum, they'd be finished.
Well, that they would have to...
You'd have to go, what's the point of the SNP?
They'd have to kind of... they would implode, wouldn't they? Because, again, what's the point of the Scottish National Party if they can't ever, despite many, many times of trying, actually force nationalisation of Scotland?
Yeah, exactly right. What's the point of them? Yeah. But, I mean, to be on the front pages of all the national newspapers, that means here as well, how could Sturgeon not know, front pages of the Daily Mail, as husband admits embezzling £400,000 of SNP funds to blow on an extraordinary shopping list from £35 loose seats to a £125,000 camper van, critics demand that she must have known. Front page of the Times, Sturgeon's estranged husband admits embezzling £400,000 from SNP. I think the Telegraph have got it as well. Sturgeon must come clean over the theft. And so I don't think this is going to go away. I think she is going to be forever tainted, and they're going to chase her to the ends of the earth because there's enough political capital in it for the people who are not for independence to go after her.
Because I think the public are just fed up with being lied to and gaslit by this nonsense. You know, the defence that, you know, I was married to someone that over a period of time embezzled all of this money. And it's not just cash that's gone into a secret bank account. She'd have a defence there, which is to say, well, I didn't know my husband had set up that Cayman Island bank account and put 400 grand in it. This was, I mean, the ultimate Mickey take. He not only embezzled the money, he couldn't have bought any more ostentatious or obvious products as a consequence of that embezzlement, could he? You know, parking camper vans at his mother's house, you know, presumably buying the watches and the pens, and there's a jewellery box in there that costs £2,500 as well. Well, who is the jewellery box for, Peter? Because I mean, I would imagine that Peter Murrell didn't himself buy the jewellery box, the encrusted, bejewelled jewellery box for him. So who was that for?
Yeah.
I mean, you would imagine that that's sitting there with, I don't know, Nicola Sturgeon's hairbrush sitting
Well,
there.
you do wonder, don't you? Because again, as a spouse, if your other half starts buying loads of stuff, you know, it's a bit like, you know, you coming home with some underwear and going, I bought this underwear and I've got a new Porsche. It's not for you though. I'm going to send it. You know, she'd be like, well, who's it for?
Yeah.
Why have you bought underwear for somebody else?
But in any relationship, if you were buying such, you know, hugely expensive products and products that were clearly so visible, I don't think is there a relationship anywhere where the other part of that relationship would not know that stuff had not come out of your joint account or had not come out of standard finances, you know, because of, you know, and you'd add it up as you went along.
Sure.
You see him sitting there with his Fabergé pen, or whatever, or you know, a load of kind of Lalique stuff on the shelf
a Karen
behind him.
Dash pencil sharpener, right?
Yeah. What's that Mona Lisa doing behind us, here, Peter? Oh, don't worry about that. I found it on a rubbish tip.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Got a car boot
You know,
sale.
and then 3 days later, the motorhome, and then the VW Golf, then the Jaguar turns up, which presumably she has been in and driven, £81,000, but never thought to say, we can't afford this, can we?
No.
Where's the money coming? Because I'm not seeing the finance payments coming out of that joint account, Peter.
Or even more, perhaps personally, if you're a politician, are you making sure that this is all done above board?
Yeah.
Are you making sure, you know, because you know, people get given stuff sometimes, and if you're being donated stuff, you would need to know about that.
Well,
if you're the First Minister or Deputy First Minister and somebody's giving you a new Jag, you need to declare it.
And in politics, somewhat unfairly, I would say, you know, the optics, the perception of something is as important, sometimes more important than the reality.
Absolutely.
In terms of making sure that even if you've done nothing wrong, the perception that you've done nothing wrong is that which is advanced, right? So you know, driving around in all of this stuff, swimming in kind of Harrods hampers and kind of, you know, very Marie Antoinette-like, you would think that they would have thought, how does this look? Let alone where's the money come from?
Absolutely,
it's completely implausible. Let's be honest. It's completely and utterly implausible that Nicola Sturgeon didn't know, never asked the question for an explanation from Peter Murrell as to where all these trinkets were coming from.
I know.
I mean, their house must have looked like Versailles.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it was only like a 2 up, 2 down somewhere outside of Glasgow.
Yeah.
But how about this, right? Some suggestions that he may have been suffering from something known as oniomania.
No, here we go.
Right, which is a compulsive spending disorder. Right,
No,
I've known
poor
people like
Pete.
that. I've known women like that.
Yeah, ex-wives.
Compulsive spending disorder. Yeah, what are you doing? Nothing. You know, here it is. Common signs to look out for. Here we go. Identifying the behaviour early can be the first step towards regaining control. The rush versus reality, feeling a sense of excitement or agitation while spending, immediately followed by feelings of intense guilt, shame or letdown after the purchase. Unused, routinely accumulating items that remain unused, unworn or in their original packaging. Hiding the habit, lying to loved ones about purchases or hiding shopping bags and credit card bills to conceal. You can't hide this stuff.
No.
You can't hide a motorhome. I'm sorry.
You can try.
You can't.
But it's kind of plain
Can
sight.
you imagine him sort of, you know, trying to park it down the road, you know, and sort of covering
No,
it
but
with
he did.
leaves.
But at
right?
his mum's house.
No, yeah.
It's not even as if it was in a multi-storey up the road. That list, by the way, that sounds like my wife's wardrobe. What you just read out.
Coping mechanisms, shopping specifically to manage or escape unpleasant emotions rather than because you need the items. I'm sorry, I'm not buying any of that.
Hang on, no, but what I'm not buying, as we said about 20 minutes ago, Mike, is this pivoting to victimhood, where, you know, he has...
Everyone's a victim.
...stolen 400 grand. And he's
Of
also...
ordinary people's hard-earned money.
But worse, he's stolen it effectively from his employer, which
Yes.
I think is even more serious because he was in a position of trust. So parking the Nicola Sturgeon culpability thing for a second, you know, there is no way that we should accept in mitigation the fact that he had something wrong with him, some kind of, I don't know, mental episode, or now, like we always do, put a label on it, you know, call it kleptomania or whatever. A label that means that it's okay for him to do it. That's it,
James,
TBS.
He was suffering from TBS.
TBS.
Thieving bastard syndrome. It's very true. Absolutely right. The other thing, right, which gives it away, which tells you that it's not some kind of disorder, was that she, as we saw in 2021, continually denied that there was a problem. Everyone, like from Humza Yousaf down, complained that people shouldn't be looking into the SNP's finances. There's nothing to see here.
Because everything was fine.
You know, everything's fine. What do you mean? There's some missing money? She physically said there's no missing money.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there is.
Yeah.
400,000 quid's
But
worth.
that 400 grand must have been quite the percent. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like he's nicked 20 quid out the petty cash and
Yeah.
forgot to pay it back, is it?
No.
For
Do
400
you know what's
grand
interesting, though? He was
is a lot of
originally
money.
charged with embezzling 600,000.
Yeah.
It was removed down to 400,000, which tells me that he's done some kind of deal,
Yeah.
right? So that he pleads guilty to a lesser amount because maybe that takes the threshold of a prison sentence down
Yeah.
from, say, I don't know, 3 years to 1 year,
Yeah.
and he goes in and serves maybe 6 months or something. And meanwhile, there's no trial. Nobody asks any questions about it. She never has to take the stand. She never gets asked any proper questions. But I don't think this is going away for her.
No, I don't think it possibly can. Given again that her political position was as it was, and supposedly trusted. So it's not going away for her. It's not going away for him. But let's not be surprised, given some of the verdicts that we've had out the judiciary over the last few months, particularly when it comes to the likes of Hugh Edwards and others, that he ends up with a suspended sentence.
Crikey.
Pay it back at £5 a week.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, because
Honestly.
the
But if
fix,
you're Lucy Connolly,
the fix, as they say, is in.
If you're Lucy Connolly
Yeah.
and you retweet something distasteful, 31 months.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Angela Rayner's in the papers today. She's on front page of the Mail.
She's not in a dinghy off the coast of
No,
Britain
but she's
again,
at Brighton Beach, and she appears to have some kind of either a wind brace. What do you call those wind protectors?
A windbreaker.
Windbreaker, there you go. She's also got her boyfriend with her down at Brighton Beach. Sam Tarry's there. She's looking slim.
Well, because she's got a house there.
I wonder if she
hasn't paid the stamp duty on, presumably still.
Well, I don't know whether she's paid it. I think she was given permission to give the money to 40,000 quid back to HMRC without a penalty.
Well, she was given the all
Right.
clear, and they said it was one of the quickest investigations that the HMRC have ever seen. It took just 24 hours to clear her.
But she looks like she might have been on the old Ozempic because she's looking quite trim.
Really?
But she's not got a fag in her hand and she hasn't got a glass of wine. So I'm not even sure it's actually her.
I'm going to say it might not be at all.
But Bank Holiday Monday, I mean, can you believe the nonsense that we're being given about this Bank Holiday heat?
Yeah, I can, because it happens every year.
I mean, we're now being told,
Can you have a look at the poll? Talking about
Yeah, let's have a look at the poll, because we've got a poll. How do you keep your cool in the heat? 1, do you take your shirt off? 2, do you have a cold beer? 3, I can't believe you put this one in. Do you put a Magnum up your backside? Or 4, do you grin and bear it? I've actually got some terrible stories to tell you about yesterday.
Well, not about Magnums, I hope.
And also,
10% of people.
I've got a picture to show you as well that's been sent in to me because I put out a tweet yesterday because I was walking down Oxford Street and all these men walking around with no shirt on.
Oh, yeah.
This was a picture was sent in. This is on the tube yesterday, right? There's a guy wearing a pair of pink shorts. You can see his underpants, right? Ted Baker underpants. And he's on the tube, and it was standing room only apparently, and there he is standing without a shirt on.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
He
isn't
should
it?
be outlawed. He should be outlawed.
He was on the phone. Apparently, according to the person that sent me the picture, he was on the phone talking, and everybody just kind of looked, and you could see that people were feeling a bit uneasy.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to say anything because you never know with these people; he might be some kind of nutter,
But this heat thing.
But what men? And I just put a tweet. I said, "Look, I know it's hot. Keep your bleeding shirt on unless you're at the beach."
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's a little bit kind of stomach churning, really. But the whole heat thing. I mean, we should remember this happens every single year.
Yep.
The media and the government, of course, try and gaslight us into thinking that this is in some way a bad thing.
Yes.
We all remember 1976.
It's something to do with somebody actually said yesterday, in 1976 it only got to 35.9 degrees, right? And taking his shirt off.
I can't unsee that.
Oh my God.
I
That is
can't
disgusting.
unsee it. Don't
Can we
ever
have a
do that
health
again.
and safety check, please?
Don't ever do that. Can we have a pooch alert for that, please?
I mean, I came in yesterday. Kelvin McKenzie's in the house. Morning, Kelvin.
Don't take your shirt off, Mackenzie.
I came in yesterday in shorts and a
Hawaiian?
Hawaiian t-shirt, a Hawaiian shirt. No, on the grounds that I was literally the only person in this entire building working. Apart from Pooch, there was nobody here. No. So I thought, it's a bank holiday. It's very hot. It's going to be roasting when I walk out of here. So I'm going to dress for the occasion. But today, back to normal. Got a shirt, got a tie, got a jacket.
But why do we do this every year? This nonsense in the MSM, where we should in some way fear the fact that it's 30 degrees. I mean, we are a nation that has spent the last 30 or 40 years since the invention of the package holiday flying south every single July and August to try and find hotter weather.
I'll tell you what.
When it happens here, why don't we just embrace it and relish it rather than criticise it?
If you actually were somebody who went away for half term, which it is this week, you'd be pretty much kicking yourself because you spent a load of money to go to Tenerife or somewhere. It's not as hot as it is in London. You know, my sister who lives over in Connecticut, it's raining and it's about sort of, 20 degrees. It's Memorial Day weekend.
And in South Carolina.
And they're all moaning and groaning and they're like, this is ridiculous. The weather's like bloody England.
But you've also got the climate zealots, the kind of Jim Dales of this word, saying that because we've had 3 days of plus 30 degree temperatures.
He's an idiot, by the way.
In summer,
I wouldn't listen to him.
But somehow, all of a sudden, it's not weather, which of course, when we have adversely cold temperatures, they say, no, that's not climate, that's weather.
Right.
But now, 3 days of plus 30, all of a sudden that is an indication that we are going to burn in hell and that Canvey Island is going to be under 30 metres of water and the Maldives are going to disappear and so on. It's all absolute nonsense.
It really is.
It's just a hot spot, right? It's just a little bit of a heat wave.
I love
Embrace
it.
Love
I must
it.
admit,
But keep your shirt on.
It's a bit hot in my flat, but but I don't mind it. Oh, thank you very much indeed. Look at that. Panto raisin. Very kind. Shall we do a bit of the Greg Dewhurst on the weather? This is what the official meteorologists are saying.
This is quite incredible, very exceptional. Normally records are broken by less than a degree, a couple of points of a degree, but see the UK record beaten by a whole 2 degrees and also the Wales record beaten by a whole 2 degrees. It's a good indication of climate change in action. The world is warming. We're seeing more extremes and the records prove it. We've had over 90 of our reporting sites across the UK seen over 30 degrees today, and seeing temperatures of 30 degrees in May, the last time was back in 2012. So to see over 90 stations reporting that today, and the records broken not just in England and also Wales, it just shows how exceptional the weather is at the moment.
So he said the last time it was this hot was 2012, right? So how is it worse?
But how's it
now?
broken a record then?
Right.
Yeah.
He reckons because more than 90 stations have reported it. Well, it's still the same temperature as 2012.
But are these the same stations that they've been using for years to report things? Stations that are broken, stations that apparently don't actually exist.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this data, this data from the Met Office has all been debunked, hasn't it?
This is the new kind of gospel, isn't it, for these wallies who go, well, we've got all this data. Yeah, but you've just made most of it up.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, you've rounded it up, but it doesn't mean anything.
Wasn't there a certain university in my neck of the woods, East Anglia University,
East Anglia,
that had to confess
the hockey stick graph
that they'd made it up?
They had.
They'd made it up to suit their political narrative. Can I just have a little rant about wildfires as well?
Yeah, please do.
This morning I've seen in the paper already there's been the first wildfire reported, and of course that will get the Jim Dales of this world really animated to say that, because we keep using
spontaneously combusting.
We keep using Lynx aerosol and driving petrol and diesel cars. As a consequence, all of our trees and bushes and forests are going to kind of descend into incineration. And it's simply not true.
Yeah.
When you do about 30 seconds worth of research, you see that just about all wildfires across the world are started by us, human beings. Trees don't spontaneously combust. These things are either started deliberately by arsonists.
They do if you're Chris Martin, you plant them in Sri Lanka because he planted them. It was a bit too hot there.
But these things, it's or a discarded cigarette or a barbecue in a park.
Yeah.
So this idea that it getting hotter and hotter, which is not man-made by the way, but just the natural ebb and flow of climate across millions and millions of years, it's us that cause the wildfires. It's not that climate change, as in a climate crisis in itself, is starting the fires. Can we get our heads around that?
No, I mean, most of the fires that get started in places like Malibu in California and in Australia, they turn out to be set deliberately, quite often by firefighters.
Or accidentally.
Who are sort of obsessed with fire, funnily enough.
But it's
Why do you want to be a fireman? I'm obsessed with fire. Are you? Right. What do you want to do? Well, I like putting them out, so if I haven't got any to put out, I'll just start a few, and then I'll get to put a few out. And that's what they do.
Yeah.
It's a very weird profession, being fireman.
Yeah.
I don't want to upset any firemen, by the way.
Yeah, they're not all arsonists.
Clearly,
I think it's fair to say.
there's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, let's just can I just add the balance here? That you're not all arsonists.
No, exactly right. That would be wrong. Absolutely wrong of me to suggest that, and I'm not suggesting that for a minute. I guess we better get some news, should we? Yeah. Before we do anything else, because I want to play Kelvin. I don't know if you were able to watch us yesterday on the waterfront. Should we play that after the news?
Yeah, okay.
So let's do Edward Hughes with the news first of all.
Good morning all, I'm Edward Hughes. Oh joy, Britain's absolutely melting. We've smashed the hottest May Day on record with a balmy 34 degrees Celsius plus. Because nothing says spring bank holiday like sweating in gridlock at Dover, while French border checks turn the M20 into a car park. Meanwhile, ex-SNP boss Peter Murrells finally nicked for pinching £400,000. Shocker. The Party of Independence can't even manage its own finances. And Jimmy Krankie didn't know a thing. Right. Richard III is promising £113 billion in shiny new spending. It's almost as if she thinks it's her money, not ours. Farage reckons the Russians hacked his phone and everyone's pretending social media isn't rotting the kids. Classic Britain. Boiling, broke, and brilliantly chaotic. Stay hydrated, legends. Later's tigers.
For some reason, Charlotte has invited Jim Dale on. I don't want that idiot on the show. You know, we don't want Jim Dale on the show. First of all, he's not a meteorologist, right? And second of all, he's a pain in the arse. So I don't think we should put him on. Anyway, Kelvin Mackenzie's here. Very good morning to you, sir.
And bollocks to Jim Dale.
How are you coping with...
Now that is the way a show should be run.
It should.
That somebody has decided to... an innocent producer has decided to hire Jim Dale.
Kevin, hold on. I've got your microphone.
Yeah, he's not the good Jim Dale. He's the funny guy.
Oh, right. And the presenter has said, no, we don't want them. I think that is a bloody good idea.
Yeah. No, but this is a guy who appears on various outlets.
What to say?
To say basically that global warming is killing the planet. Yeah. And if you're a right winger, obviously you're a complete and utter maniac.
Can I say I disagree with you and your just legged it colleague in the sense that
Mr.
Quirk. Can I just point out that it is bloody hot, and I found it quite uncomfortable to sleep last night.
Did you? And have you not got air conditioning in your massive palace?
I haven't. I have something called the window,
right,
which turned out to be bringing in more heat than...
But you're lucky, you see, because my flat in London is actually hotter than it is outside.
Yeah.
Because the sun beats down on the roof.
Right.
And it creates this incredible sort of vortex of doom and heat. And it will take about 3 days. After this heat wave goes, it will be 3 days before it gets back to normal. So I walked out this morning and I thought, this is great. It's really cool outside. But in the flat, it's an absolute nightmare. You know, you have a shower about every 3 seconds, you know, in order to make sure that...
So one of the issues that I have about climate change is that I don't know about you guys, because you might not even have you might not even have gardens or anything, but things like the old daffodils are coming up about 6 weeks earlier than when I was a kid. And I presume that's down to something to do with the climate. Whether it's to do with climate change, I'm not sure. But something has definitely...
Do you think so?
There is.
I'm not sure. Because, I mean, I go down to Sussex at the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, the garden on any given year can be you know, greener or less green or brown. You know what I mean? I mean, in my lifetime, I would say it hasn't changed that much.
Oh, yeah. No, I would say... if I looked at the way gardens are now, I would say they are browner earlier, and the sunshine is killing plants which previously survived.
I think that you've forgotten already, though, like most people do. When it gets like this and it gets really hot, and all you can think about is how the hell can I keep cool? You forget that about 2 weeks ago,
it was cold.
It was. And freezing. And May, actually, was a bloody awful month. So was April.
Yeah.
And we had terrible... I mean, I was in Oxford Street not long ago, or round the back, Wigmore Street, and it was hailing. I came out of the gym.
It's true.
And there was thunder, there was hail, it was freezing, people were huddling in the corner. I'm going, hang on a minute, it's like beginning of May.
Yeah.
Why are we getting hail? So it might be that the climate's changing, but... It's not always getting hotter, though, is what I'm saying.
No, but we have a pretty hot... You know, as somebody who likes to spend a few bob on the garden, I definitely...
Do you have a gardener?
Well, yes, I do, actually.
Because it's very hard to find a decent gardener, I've found.
Yeah, and I've hunted around a bit, and I've been lucky enough to find a gardening company, actually, rather.
Do you not find them to be curious people? Because you ring them up and they go, yeah, we'll come around probably next week, and you go, okay, then. No, and then next week they don't come around, and you ring them and they go, actually, we're away this week. Because there's these sort of curious people who are not particularly run by entrepreneurial kind of... They're not driven by entrepreneurial
I agree.
skills.
Individual gardeners probably have that attitude.
Yeah.
Actually, there are, because people have found out there's money in it, there are a number of gardening companies now, and they are.
Well, where you live, I'm sure they do well because there's plenty of big houses with nice gardens that need properly looking after.
Yes, that's correct. I don't apologise for that, by the way.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should.
No, I think we should all be.
I think you've earned the right to live in a nice house, despite all of the terrible things you've done in your life.
Exactly.
There's something wrong with that.
It's been a bumpy but enjoyable ride from my perspective.
Well, which brings us on to Nicola Sturgeon, of course, because have you, during any time in your various different cohabitations, found that somebody had an obsessive, compulsive desire to buy a load of stuff that you didn't need, and then they didn't tell you about it? You didn't notice.
Well, the thing that really made me laugh, I quite enjoyed somebody's tweet. I think it was J.K. Rowling's this morning, pointing out that I think most people would know whether their mother-in-law had a 125 grand motorhome suddenly turn up on their drive. She has a number of questions to answer. She does. And when the police put these questions to her, by the way, what was her answer?
Nothing. She said nothing, didn't
she?
No
comment.
Right.
No comment.
Right.
So it was almost like so to my mind, it's going to make a pretty good streaming documentary. So expect to see that on Hulu or one of those things. I would say that her right to have a view about anything in public on any subject is now at an end. A long period of silence is now required from Miss Sturgeon. The idea that a $2.5 grand set of salt and pepper pots can suddenly turn up, and somebody now her argument is, well, actually, I made good money, and I saw that the money she made was like in 1 year. This is over a long period, so it's quite good politics by her to claim 1 year. She made 144, and he made something like 130 or didn't he? 120, 130. So
but he spent about 300,000 on pens.
Okay, but the other issue is they had separate accounts.
Yes.
So she was saying to herself, I see, you've bought a Jaguar, you've bought a motorhome, you've bought all these little incidentals costing tens of thousands of pounds, and they're all coming out of your account.
Yeah.
How is that possible, right? And the other question...
Well, the other question is, if you're buying loads of stuff and your other half is seeing all this stuff arriving, whether it's coming on, Amazon delivery vans or whatever it is, you might be curious about who you're buying it for, wouldn't you?
Unless, of course, your life as a married couple
is a sham.
Was a... Yeah, well, I don't know about it's a sham. You can have an uncomfortable marriage in which
I've had one of those.
In which you live different lives. Somebody told me that Rupert Murdoch, when married to Anna Murdoch, right, when at the end of their kind of what had been a pretty good
the woman he was
affair,
married to for the longest time, right?
For the longest time, a good-looking woman, very bright, that they hadn't been in the same room for 18 months.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
So that's the same room, let alone the same bedroom.
Crikey.
Right. And
probably not even in the same country for a lot of it as well.
Well, that's the advantage of a private. I'm surprised you haven't got one. Having your own private jet and
I can't afford a
number
private
of
jet,
hoses.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be only a matter of time. The way your audience is going.
Yeah, it's true. But certainly there are lots of these things are what you might say personal items, right? Which are either things that you would gift to somebody, not things that you would think he would want, right? 2 pairs of Fit Nation socks, a Victorinox bike toolkit. I mean, it's just a bizarre collection of things. A copy of Monopoly, a copy of the book Women Hold Up Half the Sky, selected speeches of Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, wouldn't you go, why are you buying my book? I've got 20 copies in the back room. Luxury handmade 90th birthday card. Coffee machines worth 3,000 quid.
That was mad.
I mean, and there's a picture of her using a coffee machine, which is similar to the one that he's supposed to have bought.
Yeah.
And she's going, but I didn't know that he bought it.
So he clearly, right. So he is going to get around about 7, 8, 10 years.
Well, I wonder about that because I see that he was originally charged with embezzling 600,000, reduced to 400,000. I wonder if that's some kind of threshold for a criminal imprisonment.
No, his position.
But he's also, again, you said that she didn't speak to the police. She didn't answer any of their questions. He also gave the impression that he was going to defend himself, and then suddenly he pleads guilty, and there's no trial, which also is a bit fishy, isn't it?
But the bottom line is, he's going. Remember what Lord Young said, the judge. He said this was a gross betrayal of trust.
Yeah.
He's the CEO, and he's got his hands in the honeypot.
Yeah.
That is what gets you
Yeah.
the big sentence.
Right.
Because if you can't, you're right, you get some squirt at the bottom, nicking money and fiddling some kind of checkbook in some rather odd way or credit card or something. That's one thing. If you actually get the boss saying, that's one for me and one from the missing whatever. So I expect him to get 7 years.
And ordinary people are now saying, those who gave the 400,000 plus, we want our money back.
Yeah.
Quite rightly.
Yeah.
And so I wonder whether that will be pursued. Joanna Cherry, who's a very capable KC up in Scotland, has also said that she needs to be investigated. So I don't think this is the end of it. And I think she will be feeling the old collar felt,
right,
I think,
but
at some point.
So let's agree that if you are Scottish and you're watching this, or you have friends who are Scottish, then you must put the pressure on her to have a period away from public utterances.
Yes.
How she can talk about, I don't know, the finance of the nation, or what Scotland will do financially if it does better, or anything connected with any forms of money, that has got to come to an end.
Wasn't she given some kind of job in charge of a charity or something recently, I think I remember
well, in that
seeing
case, you know, nobody's suggesting she did it, but what we're saying is, you're married, right? Is there not a moment at which you say to yourself, this does seem rather odd to me? However, she issues a statement which says, absolutely, I had not the slightest suspicion that a 125 grand motorhome that was parked on my mother-in-law's drive had been purchased by my husband.
Yeah.
Is that believable?
Yeah.
And I say it doesn't pass the sniff test.
Well,
Now,
we've
the
got
other thing that doesn't pass the sniff test, by the way, and he seems to have almost got away with it, is Andy Burnham buying a 2-bedroom flat in 2020.
Around the corner from here in Kennington.
Yeah. Right, nice area, and they say it's only worth $500,000. Well, flat prices have come down in London. But the bottom line is, he's a landlord.
Yeah.
Round this way, because I looked it up on Rightmove, round this way, a 2-bedroom in Kennington would get round about $3,000 to $3,500 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the next issue is he's a landlord. Welcome to the world of which many ordinary people live in, i.e., like him, they've made a 20-year bet and they're coming to the end of it. They now own it outright and it's $3.5 grand, which probably after tax, one way and another, you're going to make at least a couple of grand, which is very nice. Okay. The difference is, of course, he bought it when he was an MP.
Yes.
So his mortgage interest was
that.
paid by you, me, and actually you're right.
Which was always the racket that the MP's expenses kind of revealed.
However, he went one step further. What did he do? He rented that one out.
Yeah.
So it trousered to him.
Yeah.
And then he rented another place and sent the whole damn bill to the taxpayer.
Well, that's what Pat McFadden did. Pat McFadden, who's now in the current sort of government as a sort of enforcer in the cabinet, he actually moved next door to the house that he owned in order that he could rent out his own house and collect that money privately, but then claim the rental income.
We're talking about the bloke who is allegedly to be the great white hope of our country, to lead us up to the sunlit uplands over there.
The people's champion.
Yeah, and at the same time, that makes him, to my mind, there'll be other views, to my mind, unsuitable to be our Prime Minister.
Agree.
I don't want a guy who's doing that kind of stuff to me in plain sight.
I don't mind people doing it. I just object to the hypocrisy of it, where he maintains that he's this young, working class boy made good. Absolute rubbish. The house that his parents live in and that he grew up in is worth 1.3 million, right? I've also got questions about him moving to this supposed new constituency, which is only a new constituency in 2024 because it was the boundary changes made it a new constituency. I would put it to you that he, playing the long game, thought, I know, I'll move to this area because at some point or other in the future, I will claim that I moved to this area because I love this area and I want to be the Prime Minister of this country, because he always wanted to come back as an MP. And I think it all stinks to high heaven. And I think the guy is a charlatan and a complete and utter discredited individual. And by the way, he's not a very good mayor of Manchester either. He spent 200 million quid putting together a ULEZ zone, which then failed because the people didn't want it. If you walk around Manchester, apparently, you can see loads of cameras which have all got a big stamp on them saying under review. He spent £100 million capping the price of bus travel, £2. So for everybody that, but again, it's not capped. It's the taxpayer that's paying it, 100 million quid. You know, this is a guy who has not got a track record of anything other than being a Corbynista, he's a Brownista, he was a Blairite, you know, he worked for Miliband. You know, this guy's worked for every single Labour leader. He's got no principles whatsoever. I think he's a disaster.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Anyway.
that was a party political broadcast on behalf of the Andy Burnham Party.
Yes. By the way, here's another miracle of Scottish journalism, Brian. The Daily Record has finally done a decent front page. I don't know if you've seen it today.
Must be just before it shuts.
Yeah, look at that. They've actually done Nicola Sturgeon up as Manuel from Fawlty Towers. I know nothing.
I know nothing.
Which is actually quite clever.
Yeah.
That's the best Daily Record front page I've seen in a long time.
That's the better way for... I'm not sure the printed medium is going to survive, but if it is going to survive, it's to be more like it is.
Yes.
I'm talking about the bottom end.
Yes.
And that kind of thing will do them much more good.
It will.
Than saying I'm not guilty, says.
Exactly.
Says
exactly. Also, back to the weather scenario, because I want you to see this, because we came up with a great idea yesterday.
Right,
because not Nicola Sturgeon, but Stella Creasy. Another one of those put out a warning about the heat. So have a look at this.
But actually, at these sorts of levels of heat, there could be real problems for some in our community. So by working together, we can help keep Walthamstow safe in whatever the weather is.
So
You got water dispenser bit, Mike.
Just to make sure that I don't get dehydrated. I've got some water. I've got the machine behind me now as well. Okay. You know, it's very dangerous out there, right? So I can sit here all afternoon just drinking water.
Dehydrated, Mike.
Do you think I look a bit dehydrated? Yeah, here we go. Crikey. It is dangerous out there, right? So if you can't get as much water around you as I have, don't be alarmed, because what you can do is go down to...
Mike, you need water.
Oh, more water. 25 degrees.
Yeah, quick water.
Right, here we go.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel fine. I was starting to feel a bit weak earlier.
Yeah, a bit dehydrated.
A bit dehydrated, because you've got to be careful. If you've got some kind of, health issue, you think Stella Creasy might have something better to do, right? The stupid woman that she is, right? She didn't like the fact that I had made fun of her as well. She had a go at me, bizarrely. But the point is, you can never have enough water. Actually, you can. If you drink too much water, can you not get water on the brain or something?
It can kill you.
It can kill you. So be very careful not to, it's a balancing act.
There you go. Have the machine behind you, Mike.
I'll get some other water from here, shall I? Yeah. Yeah. Do you notice, by the way, when you take these things out, you always get more than one, don't you? I always go put it back in like that. And then, here we go. Yeah. You can feel yourself getting weaker by the minute. So we obviously made sure we weren't dehydrated yesterday.
Yeah,
so
that was a clever little idea.
Yeah.
That.
So
that's the whole point of the online world.
Well, it is. I mean, because at the end of the day, and everybody loved it, because they're going, why on earth do we have to have these ridiculous warnings coming at us from various MPs? Please, she was actually saying, Stella Creasy was asking for businesses to provide areas of shade, right? So that if you're feeling a bit weak, you can go and sit down in the shade to get out of the heat, making sure that you check. I mean, can you imagine somebody coming around and going, sorry, Kelvin, just checking on you, you're okay, are you? Yeah, I'm fine. What are you doing? Bugger off. Get out. What do you don't need people telling you to drink water all bleeding day, And you do see people down the tube, because we're going to go on the tube with one of those huge water carriers, just to make fun of it. But you see people with these ridiculously huge kind of, containers of water. You think, what are you doing? These kids in their 20s and they're walking around with enough water to sort of, drown a camel.
Yeah,
you know, it's ridiculous.
But okay, well, I must be an outlier on this. I thought it was bloody hot yesterday, frankly.
It was,
and almost impossible to be comfortable. But I'm not blaming climate change. But it looks as though it's going to be hot for the
it's going to be
for the next
even hotter
week
today.
Or 10 days.
Well, I welcome it. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been away in the sunshine since the year before last. Actually, I didn't go away last summer for some reason.
Why?
I think we were trying to buy a house or something. So there was kind of, it was one of those where, well, the thing is, if you go away and then they accept the offer, and we'll be somewhere like Spain, and you'll go, Christ, So it was one of those where you just kind of, we kept just dragging it out.
Did you buy a house in the end?
No, it didn't in the end.
Oh,
no,
right.
because it became so difficult.
Really?
Yeah, because when you own, you probably know, maybe not, you run your own company, the numbers of hoops you've got to jump through compared to the last house I bought was in Scotland, right, in 2005-ish. I got fired from the Mirror and I bought a house in a place called Linlithgow, very nice, outside of Edinburgh, not too expensive. I literally said, how much do you earn? I said, well, 70,000 a year. Fine, sign here. That was it. That was the amount of checking they did. Now it's the complete opposite.
Oh yeah.
Now they go, sorry, where did you get that money from that you're putting down? Is that come from some Russian oligarch? No, I'm not money laundering. You right? It's just can I just buy it? And it got to the point where I was in America actually at some point because I was just visiting my sister. I wasn't on holiday, and I eventually got yet another email from the lawyers. Could you just provide us with some more documents? And I was like, do you know what? No. Just get lost. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm out. I'm not doing it. This was after about 3 months of
actually,
providing.
That would have been a very wise political financial decision because the price will have gone down.
It has gone down.
So perhaps you should do that more regularly.
Yes.
Every year.
Because they came back and knocked like 30,000 off the price.
Did
40,000 off the price. I just still didn't want it. I didn't really fancy the house. When you see a house and you think, I don't actually really like that house. I don't really want to live there.
Well, can I ask you this? If you felt like that, why did you bid for it?
Because I was under orders.
In what sense?
From somebody who wanted the house.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was sort of powerless to resist.
So
without wishing to go into any personal grief.
So one of the strongest breakfast show hosts in modern broadcasting or narrowcasting felt under pressure from somebody close to you to buy a house, and you decided, I will do this, until you decided, I'm not going to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how it was.
Ladies and gentlemen, after the show...
I'll get in terrible trouble over this.
Mike Graham will be going to visit one of his counselling friends to explain how he can be at least 2 people in one day.
Yeah, minimum 2.
A minimum of 2.
Absolutely right. No, but you know what it's like. I mean, you're going to tell me that you, as one of the most powerful media moguls of your generation...
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Go on.
Right? Haven't done things because you wanted to help somebody out or to please somebody or to do it
mainly the person I was trying to help out was myself, I must be honest
there is always that.
On Murdoch, the expression which most sums up Murdoch is lower the lifeboat I'm in.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a fantastic way of operating your life, which is actually never doing anything except in your own narrow interest.
Self-interest.
It's when you try and accommodate somebody else.
Yeah, because it just depresses you and you get irritable and you get,
Well, no, worse than that, because you're not actually telling the truth about how you feel, right? How you actually feel. This then leads to an enormous domestic of some kind, as somebody says, well, actually, aren't you listening to me?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is, no, I'm not.
Well, the thing is, I get accused quite regularly of not caring where I live, right? Which isn't entirely true, but it's somewhat true.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that must have a house. I must have, ownership of somewhere that I call my own. I don't. I lived. I grew up in a flat in North London, in Hampstead, actually, very nice place. But my parents weren't rich, but they rented all their lives. My dad didn't believe in buying property. Right. And I think some of that kind of rubbed off on me. Right. And I get accused on a regular basis by my various advisors, shall we say, of not caring about having a house and being weird. Because I live in a rented flat in London as well. Yeah. And actually, at the moment, renting is quite a good choice. Yeah. Because you don't know whether the mortgages are going to go up, whether, you're going to find yourself, if you did buy a house, whether you're going to find yourself being hit by a mansion tax of some kind, which Burnham wants to bring in if he gets into power.
Well,
right?
we've got a mansion tax starting, I think, in 28, which is that any house, actually, thanks to Labour being in power, there's hardly going to be any houses valued over 2 million.
Yeah, right.
So, because I know of cases where enormously expensive houses are actually hurtling towards 2 million at 100 miles an hour, thanks to so anybody who bought a house actually 3 or 4 years ago is probably just about batting a draw.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a very good guy on Twitter called on X called Henry Pryor.
Oh, yeah.
You should get him.
I know him. Yeah, I know Henry.
Yeah, right, you should get
Property
Henry
guy,
on
yeah.
sometimes.
I used to get him on talk actually.
Yeah. You get him to come and talk about what's what, because the great thing about Henry is that every so often he takes people like Savills to task who put a house on saying just on the market, right?
Yeah.
And it's 2.8 million.
Yeah.
He points out, well, it was just on the market last year at 3.7 million and the year before.
Right.
You get him to talk about, especially London, but not only London, anywhere in the home counties. The truth about the matter is Burnham wants a wealth tax, so he wants to take money from the home counties, right? Why? I have no idea, and move it up to some very hard up places in the north. Why don't the people from the hard up north just simply get on their bikes and come down here and find work? There's plenty of work. You want to be a gardener, you can make yourself £25 an hour.
But the interesting thing about the North, as it's called, and he claims to be the king of the North, which I think he is that Makerfield constituency is actually quite a well-off area. Yeah. You know, people were saying, as he was walking, doing one of his kind of, party political broadcasts about, people in this part of the world have missed out. He's walking past quite a lot of nice houses, all of which have got quite nice cars parked outside them, because these are not, people grubbing around for a living. These are people who have got professional jobs, who have got reasonable income, who've got home ownership. They've got a car or two possibly in the family. These are not deprived people. You might say that there's parts of Manchester which are deprived, but not Makerfield.
Well,
Makerfield is
40% of Manchester is socially deprived, so it's tough. Look, that is a very good point, and it accounts for the only polling I've seen on that Survation polling, in which 40% were voting Reform.
Yeah. It's a very small poll, though, isn't it?
It's a minute poll. I totally get that, and could be completely wrong. However, the one bit that I was staggered about, I wasn't staggered about 7% for Restore. I was staggered by the Conservatives. They are a 2% party.
Nobody's talking about them at all, are they?
Okay, so you can say what you like about Kebby Bagan. She may be a genius. She may be one of the great seers of our time. She may be bringing the Tories back, and you read The Spectator or The Mail or somebody like that. Oh, yes, she's on her way. She's not. No. She's on her way to obscurity. Yeah. Nobody is going to vote Conservative while they still have a memory.
But this is,
if they're suffering from dementia, fine. They have got to live out in the boondocks for a good long period before people will accept one damn word from those people.
But this is, again, the misconceptions of the Westminster bubble, because they think people like Michael Gove are still important. They think that The Spectator is still important. And it really isn't, as a Conservative organ, if you know what I mean. Because where people that used to call into my show when I had phone-in show at Talk, they would say, we'll never vote Conservative again. We voted Conservative all our lives. We're never voting for them again because they've let us down. The Boris wave has been a disaster. Brexit didn't happen. All of the things that they said they would do, they didn't do. They locked down the country when it shouldn't have. People have just had enough. And the journalists still don't get that it's over.
Well, they get carried away by the fact that somebody can put their knife and fork down in the correct manner, and they turn out to be Conservatives. So Badenoch, because she doesn't drop huge clangers anymore, and because actually, to give her a credit, she seems to have fought off. I don't know who actual her competitors would be within the party to be leader. They're saying, well, she's got a handle on this, and we've got 3 years to go. I don't believe that myself. What I do worry about, though, and I'm not suggesting that the poll of 40 to Nigel Farage and 7 to Rupert Lowe is a correct analysis of what the situation is. But there is no doubt that enmity on the right is a difficult.
But that
area.
is a far more
I am
interesting
not
story.
a Rupert Lowe fan.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure there's quite a lot of your viewers who will be.
Many of them are. I'm not a particularly Rupert Lowe fan
will
either.
be piling in. I objected to that expression about midges and eating migrants alive and all that kind of stuff. I think that is just. I don't know people who will vote for that, and I am concerned about some people who would vote for that. The greatest opportunity for the right is for Nigel Farage, but it would be clear. Look, free speech is everything, and people are entitled to have whatever views that they like, as long as they're within the law. But I would hate to think that we end up with a Labour administration in 29 just simply because two men couldn't do a deal with each other. And I think for Rupert Lowe, it's right. It's correct that he should be annoyed at the fact that he had his guns taken away when the
allegations were made.
Allegations were made. Look, I'm not against that. But to continue it to the point where it might have a political effect on the country on the downside, I think that is something that a clever man like Rupert Lowe should think about seriously.
Well, you would also know, we're going to talk in a minute to somebody, Nick Buckley, who was, I think, still... we've got Nigel Pawley next. Sorry, my apologies. We'll come to Nick Buckley in a minute. Who's going to be, he's sort of more on the advanced side with Ben Habib. But, I think this is a fascinating story. We'll talk about it in some length because the big piece in the Mail today, the ego trip that could backfire on Britain. Does Rupert Lowe really want to go down in history as the man who made Burnham Prime Minister with Elon Musk's help? And, there's so many things to talk about that. But let's do that.
Can I just say about that? That works both sides.
Yeah.
That I think that Farage is a great politician, probably the greatest politician. If he ends up as Prime Minister in 29, he would be the greatest politician of our age. Yeah. And it's also on Nigel's side as well, I think, to see what he can be done. After all, they are both in politics. Politics is the art of the possible, right? And I would just simply like to see. It's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but some kind of feelers being put out to see in what possible way they could accommodate each other.
I mean, it's an unpleasant game as well, politics, even worse than journalism to some extent. But we're going to talk to a man now who knows a thing or two about nastiness in journalism. Nigel Pawley is here. Nigel, sorry to keep you waiting. I didn't realise you were there. Kelvin McKenzie never shuts up, as you probably know.
Kelvin McKenzie, I'm not going to interrupt Kelvin's words.
No, you can't. It can't be done. Let's talk about Hugh Edwards, though, because I think it's time that somebody pulled the plug on this guy. The piece in the Sunday Times at the weekend suggesting that Channel 4 are looking into possibly doing a documentary, not just a documentary on him, but from his side of the perspective. And you're kind of going, sorry, I'm not really that interested in his side of the perspective on what happens to him. This is a guy who was sending pictures of his backside to teenagers while he was reading the news. And also had a collection of pictures, many of which were quite disturbingly paedophile-like in their tendency. Why do we want to hear from this bloke? And why does Channel 4 even think it's a good idea?
Well, it's a sign of desperation for Channel 4 that they had issues with Married at First Sight, and some girls who appeared on it, 3 or 4, claimed they'd been raped. Now, if they're trying to deflect away from that by saying they're going to chat to Hugh Edwards, I'd say that's a sign of how desperate Channel 4 are. Because Hugh Edwards is a pariah, rightly, within the media. Now, he has got a publicist. Now, I'm going to say I've known most publicists. I've not heard of this guy. Hugh Edwards allegedly has got a voluntary... I've never known publicists to work voluntarily either, to be honest, either. A guy called Barry Tomes, and his previous charges include Alvin Stardust, who, to my knowledge, is dead, the Beach Boys... 50% of them at least are dead, and Tony Christie. Now, it may well be the best crisis manager in the world.
No.
But, he's 75% certain that Hugh Edwards will be talking to Channel 4 and giving his side of the story. Not great odds. I had better odds than that to live 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I just think using Hugh Edwards. We should be asking Hugh Edwards, did you pay the money back? And if not, why not?
Yeah.
He was on 600 grand a year. Why did you, he pleaded mental health issues. I mean, obviously, he wasn't mentally ill if he was, as you say, sending pictures of his backside while he's reading the news. It does explain why you only see the top half of them on the desk, I suppose. So, why we would want to hear from Hugh Webb? So Hugh Webb was criticised the Channel 5 documentary drama that had Martin Clunes having to pin his ears back to play Hugh Edwards. He did a good job of Hugh Edwards. Whether it was suitable or not, I don't know. I think we read all the court. If you read the court papers, you don't need to see a drama. We saw for real this phony man who was announcing the Queen's death on one hand and sending pictures of himself to teenagers on the other. He's a disgraced being. He can live out happily. I don't say he should be hounded. He can live happily out his life somewhere in Bridgend or in South Wales in obscurity. We do not need to have Hugh Edwards back on our screens, in our newspapers, or in our public life.
No, exactly right. And he seems to be trying to attempt to make out that the reason he is the way he is, i.e. a paedophile and a criminal, is because his dad wasn't very nice. And you go, well, we've all got that argument to make if you want to make it, but it's not really an excuse, is it?
Well, no, I mean, Harriet Harman might agree with him because, that's a sort of, the sort of excuse that she used to use for people who've acted badly and people of that ilk. But I think he got to the age of 62 before he realised that was his dad had caused him issues and started going off the rails. Apparently, it was 6. So that's a long time, to realise that your dad may have affected your life. I don't agree with that at all. I think we have an image, a thing in life now where people play the victim. And however horrific anything is, they can turn it around, mainly through social media, because, unlike the days of newspapers where you could put the story out there and there was 24 hours for them to respond if they responded, instantly now people can put their version of the truth out, which is their version of the truth. But if you can do it well enough, you can get that version out there. And Hugh Edwards is trying to get the narrative back. And I just think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong that people should even try to excuse what he did. I've not heard one ounce of contrition from him. He had his wife actually announce the problem. If you remember, lots of BBC stars were being accused of being it, from Jeremy Vines and whoever were in the frame, weren't they, when they said a BBC star. So his wife finally had to come out. It is like a Little Britain sketch, isn't it, where you stand there with your wife and apologise for your bad behaviour. But he wasn't even standing next to her. No. She had to stand out and front it. He sort of ran off and went away to protect his mental health. So he's never made an ounce of any sort of contrition, not to his victims or anyone else. As far as I can understand, they tried to sue the victims. He had a huge, one of the top law countries in the country, trying to stop the Sun. And if you remember, people from the newsagent type people of Goodall and Sopel and
John Sopel,
sneeringly attacked the Sun for actually doing the story. And there was a very good story by the girl who wrote this story a couple of weeks ago of how she was hounded and how they tried to discredit her for breaking probably the biggest news story of a couple of years ago.
And
so
again, but it also
no shame.
But it also showed, didn't it, Nigel, that the tabloid world has changed irrevocably from when you and I were in it, where the Sun were kind of, sort of stroking their brows and their chins, wondering how they could do the story without upsetting anyone. And you go, just do the bleeding story.
I don't understand it. I mean, we are dinosaurs. We do come from that era, and I don't. Some of the stories I wrote, I'm not particularly proud of, to be honest. But they were mainly about celebrities who used us, and we got stories about them. But if you have a newsreader accused of sending pictures of kids, I don't see how there can be any way.
It's a proper story,
Be thinking about it's a story. It's not some rubbish about Love Island person or who's going to be hosting Strictly Come Dancing. This is a person who announced the Queen's death, the person who was the biggest paid newsreader in the country, on the side, chatting up young boys, sending pictures of himself, and acting. It wasn't even a Jekyll and Hyde, was it? It was just a weird situation.
Paying them off as well. I mean, it's just awful.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a substantial sum that he paid this family, hadn't he, as well? So, fairly disgraceful scenes. And now, if that is due to your dad not taking you to football or giving you a hard time when you were a kid, then I think we're all in for some good excuses along the line, Mike. I'm going to get my excuses in now.
Yeah, absolutely right. Nigel, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking actually of the old days of the tabloids. Not because he's not one of my favourite people actually. Matthew, there was a piece in Pop Bitch the other day about how the Cannes Film Festival has now become sort of quite boring because
nobody's there.
Nobody's there.
Nobody who's got a decent film is there, right?
But they told a story of how one year it was the usual, Richard Wallace, Matthew Wright, they were all down there, Kevin O'Sullivan, they were all madly getting absolutely hammered every single hour of the day. And they discovered that there was some kind of porno operation that had a ship just off the coast of Cannes, right? And they said, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get them to throw a party for everybody. And Oasis were down there because it was during the time of Oasis. It must have been the late 90s or something. And they got this porno outfit to issue invites to this great party. They were going to have porn stars on the boat and all the rest of it. And they said, you've got to invite Oasis. And of course, they invited Oasis. Oasis said, we're not going. So the splash in the sun was, Oasis turned down porn party. Great story, right? But means nothing, but just funny, right? Yeah. But nobody does that sort of stuff anymore.
No.
I don't. I sort of mourn its loss, really, because it was funny.
Yeah, no, the Sun has definitely abandoned it. Abandoned humour as part of their kind of commercial offering, and it's worse for it since the reality is that you can only take so much Iran, you can only take so much Trump, you can only take so much of all this. You actually need something to leaven the bread.
You do,
and
this is why we were doing the thing with the water yesterday. Because people can only take so many warnings about, it's really, really hot. Be really careful. Actually, no. How about you take the piss out of it?
Yeah, well, I can't understand telling people that it's hot because they do know that it is hot.
Exactly.
They also know when it's cold. So what do they do when it's cold? They wrap up.
Yeah.
When
check on your neighbours when it's cold and when it's hot.
Do you know those people who go around? There are loads of guys walking around London now without any kinds of tops on.
I hate that.
Yeah. Well, you may hate it.
You saw the picture from the Tube, right?
Yeah, shocking. So
absolutely awful.
So the next issue.
There it is. Look at that. I mean, imagine standing next to that guy on the Tube.
Why do they do it? Why do they do it? Are they trying to attract the opposite sex towards them, or what?
Or the same sex, possibly?
Or the same sex, or are they just doing that to society? I don't know. Perhaps it's the latter.
Again, I mean, to continue with the kind of theme of lawlessness and just kind of people with no manners and people that don't have any manners anymore. Right. I was coming out of the Tube yesterday after, travelling on it and seeing all sorts of horrible things. Two young girls were ahead of me on the escalator, walked straight up and was coming out of Bermondsey Station, and there's a guy sitting there, in the booth, supposedly a staffer.
Yeah.
I go and put my card in, go through the gate. They literally just walk through. They're both teenagers, right? Walk through the barrier, push it open, just walk out. And he's watching them.
Oh, yeah.
And again, Pooch and I have had this conversation before, and you think, should I say something to him? Should I go, are you not going to do something about it? But I mean, pretty much every single time I use the Tube, somebody does that. Yeah. And so many people are just not paying.
But there's clever. Even in a place like Weybridge, I saw two clever younger women, probably around about 18, 19. Right. So she holds up her card as though it's going to be, I think it's her phone actually, as though she's going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What in fact happened was that the first friend, her friend, actually goes through. It there opens, and therefore number two, pretending to do that, wiggles through with her. Right. So this is a railway station in a place like Weybridge. I can't imagine how much money is being lost through just straightforward cheating.
Yeah.
Now, and it's also something on the other side. They don't want to say anything because they are fearful, I think, sometimes, of taking a beating from somebody.
Possibly.
And actually, I wouldn't like to say to a young guy, 6'2" or something like that, oi, where's your car? So you either need more people, or you need tougher security, or you need something. I mean,
or you need to just construct a gate which you can't just push through.
New York City, basically, because of that mayor, the general attitude towards actual paying for your fare has come to a complete full stop. Most people are either bounding over it, wiggling through it, just simply not paying in one way or the other. It's shocking.
It is. And I don't know what you do about it. Honestly, don't know. Should we do some news, or do you want to go to? We talk to Nick Buckley now.
Yeah.
All right. Nick Buckley is here.
Oh, that'll be some interesting stuff there.
He's up in Manchester, of course, so we can ask him about what the state of Manchester as a city is. Nick, sorry to keep you waiting. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
We were talking earlier, Kelvin and I, about this uniting of the right conversation that's going on and the kind of destructiveness that's going on as well because of this by-election. It really seems to be turning pretty nasty between Restore Britain and Reform. All sorts of accusations being made, counter-accusations being made, Where's it all going?
Good question. I think the truth is nobody knows where it's going at the moment. I think everyone's waiting till after the by-election. The first question we need answering is, are Restore Britain for real? Are they going to do well? No one thinks they're going to win, but if they win, it's a game changer. If they do very well, it's going to be good going forward for them. I think part of the question you two gents have missed, I've been listening to about half an hour of you chatting, is when it comes to Reform UK, most people who are on the right, who don't vote Reform UK, don't think Reform are actually on the right. We all think they're centrists. They may look a little bit on the right, but that's only because the country has moved so left over the last couple of decades. I actually don't think they're on the right, they're centrists. Hence why other parties on the right are starting up. Hence why they won't do deals with Reform. And it also doesn't help that many people on the right who know Nigel Farage and have fallen out with Nigel Farage don't trust him. Hence why a deal between some of these parties, I think, is absolutely impossible going forward.
Yeah, but the answers for your question there really is about how sort of, navel gazing that has become inside certain parts of the right, if you like. Because if you look at what happened on May the 7th, in terms of who voted for Reform, an awful lot of people voted for Reform. And those are not the people that think that they're not on the right. Those are people that think Reform are the answer. And so, there's a disconnect, is there not, between what the noise is on social media from Restore Britain and what's actually happening.
Oh, absolutely. And hence why I'm waiting for election day, the day after election day, to find out what went on in this by-election. Because you're right, if you're listening to Twitter, then Restore Britain are going to win with 98% of the vote. Yeah. They're going to force a general election the next day, and by this time next week, they're going to be in power. So, but that's social media. Every party is trying to play the social media game. But I think you're right. Restore, Reform, you've got to be careful what you say. Reform are very popular in the country. But you have to think to yourself, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because my country has been dying all my life. All these problems we have today are not new problems. These were problems we had in the 70s. We've only got new problem makers. We haven't got new problems. And I think the people of the UK, are going to make the same mistake again, which is we're going to vote for the status quo. We just want a slightly better version of the status quo. And if that's what you want, then vote Reform. But the status quo isn't good enough. The status quo is still going to kill us. It's just going to kill us very slowly instead of what Labour are doing very fast.
Yeah, but the answer to that, again, to that question, if you're Restore Britain, is we're going to change the way that everything works. Well, they can't change the way that everything works. And I mean, when you say we had the same problems in the 70s, I don't think that's true. What problems did we have in the 70s that we've still got?
Rampant socialism, people wanting communism, mass immigration, the system not working for the working class.
There wasn't mass immigration in the 70s, though. That's the point. I mean, the point is that mass immigration has been a relatively recent thing, which has ruined, to a large people's extent, many communities in this country. It wasn't like that in the 70s.
It started in 1948. Mass migration started in 1948.
No, I disagree with you. No, migration started, but it wasn't mass migration, not in the same way that it is now, where you're getting 1 million people a year coming in from foreign countries. That wasn't happening in the 70s or in the 40s.
1 million wasn't, but the same issues connected to mass immigration today started in the late 40s. By 1950, the Labour government had to set up a special committee to look at immigration into the UK, because in 2 years, the people in the working class areas that were getting the immigrants were saying, we want no more. These are the same problems. All that's happened is the problems have got worse and worse. Therefore, it started affecting. This doesn't mean to sound derogatory towards you, but now the middle classes are feeling it over the last decade. The educated are feeling it. Their children are being punished because of it. But I was speaking to the people I grew up with in the 70s, and these were things they were saying in the 1970s. All that's happened.
Yeah, but I wasn't. I grew up in the 1970s. I went to school in London. I lived in London pretty much all my life, and London is now a very different city than it was in the 1970s. And people were not complaining about the kind of things that they complain about now, because it wasn't like that.
Oh, I think they were.
No, they weren't. I was living there. You can't tell me they were. I'm telling you they weren't.
They were. You just didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it. Oh, what? Because I was walking around without my ears on?
No. It's just that people only hear certain things. I heard it all in Manchester in the 70s, so I know Manchester was like London. So the point I'm trying to make is the country needs change. It doesn't need a better version of the status quo.
Yeah, but you can't just say the country needs change. Andy Burnham says the country needs change. Keir Starmer says the country needs change. Yeah. Rupert Lowe says the country needs change. They don't say what the change is.
And that's the $1 million question. What is the change? Because you're right. Every politician thinks they've got the change. Every politician we've had in my lifetime gets voted in. Every party gets voted in going, we're the change, we're going to change something. And nothing changed. Well, things change because things have been getting worse all my life. So who do you trust? I have no idea who we trust.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And there we are.
Yep.
Nick Buckley, thank you very much indeed. Everybody says, Kelvin, we're going to change it. But they don't say how they're going to change it or what they're going to do to change it.
It does involve some serious minded. Most of us would change our attitudes if we felt wealthier, that if we felt that our children were likely to have decent lives, and just as importantly, that our grandchildren were going to find work.
Well, Bill Clinton used to say it's the economy's stupid, right? Because it is. Yeah. Once the economy's decent, people worry less.
So our problem is, and one of the interesting things I noticed when I was in the States is that there was no talk about welfare. And the reason for that is that people, average earnings were there and welfare was there. In this country, we have got a minimum pay threshold, which has meant that actually welfare and minimum pay are running side by side. It's at that point that people then make a decision about whether they want to try hard for work. Whereas if they were actually starving or were facing a knock on the door because they hadn't paid their council rents, then they would be more energized to go and find work.
Yeah.
And so this is the issue. And we may be in a world where actually the amount of jobs available currently are going down. We have smallest vacancies now for donkey's years, right? And
we have a massive youth unemployment problem because the jobs that you and I used to start doing when we were teenagers aren't there anymore.
Well, one of the puzzles I have about that, for instance, I hate the idea of what seems to be coming up on the Milburn report. The Milburn report looks as though what he's going to say, right? He does himself all right himself, by the way. His own personal PR and his own private company are probably going to be full of speaking engagements at 20 grand a pop saying, I've got the answer. Is he appears to be wanting to increase benefits for households in order to encourage the lazy and feckless half-wits that they have spawned into the world not to stay on benefits, but to go out and work. Honest to God, why don't they do it the other way around and say, we'll cut the parents' benefits if the children don't go out to work?
Well, I was laughing at this yesterday. It was a splash in the Times, right? So they're going to go to somebody's house, knock on the door, go, excuse me, have you been telling your son not to get a job? Here's 500 quid. Please tell him to get a job. That's ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense at all.
But you can see where Labour are coming from. Every answer,
their answer
is a subsidy.
Give some money to them.
Give them some money. By the way, it's your money. It's your subscribers' money. You are, and I don't know how we're going to change this. I hope that we're going to change it. It doesn't look as though it's going to come from Nigel, because Nigel, when thrown the ball in terms of welfare, to my mind, is much more uncertain on it, right? Rather than saying, look, don't vote for me if you're not prepared to have a sacrifice on your welfare payments, right? I am going to cut them. I'm telling you now. Unfortunately, there's an uncertain note on that trumpet.
Well, you're talking about the two-child benefit cap.
I'm not only talking about that. Generally, he has said about the triple lock.
Yeah.
He's kept well away from those areas. They're keeping well away from areas where they think it will cost them votes. I say to them, march into the sound of gunfire.
Yeah.
Just tell us the truth, that we can't afford 100 billion a year paid to creditors. We know not. Supposing the creditors said, I tell you what, we're going to pull in our loans.
Yeah.
By the way, we'd have to deal with it then in the same way as Greece had to deal with it. Pensions were this. Unemployment went through the roof. If you look at what Greece looks like and look at what we look like, we are mirror images. We have got to do something that is not based around constantly saying to people, you're paying more tax so that another section of society doesn't have to go to work and doesn't have to worry about life. We're trying to take the pain out of life. Nobody is entitled to live a pain-free life.
No, and we've also lost our ambition, I think, as a nation.
Yeah.
I think we don't have any longer people who are hungry. And if they are hungry, they leave the country. They go somewhere else. They go to Australia. They go to, I don't know, America. They go to Canada. They go to Portugal or even maybe Dubai, because they see the opportunity there and they see that that's where they're going to get rewarded. If you work for a living here, I mean, I'm looking through, as we started a new business, this year, 4 months in. Yeah. The number of hoops you have to jump through, the number of hurdles you have to jump over. They don't make it easy for people who are trying to make money, who are trying to kind of, build a business and trying to create wealth, if you like.
Right. So I'm in a small town in South Carolina.
Yeah.
My colleague and I wander into a bank, right? Very few people work in these banks, by the way. It looks like about
half a dozen or something.
Yeah,
right?
5 or 6 people. And we say, we'd like to see your chief loan officer.
Yeah.
They said, oh yeah, Tom, go around the corner. We wander around there, bloke sitting there, an empty desk there like that. Oh, hi Tom. Hi Kelvin, Andy. Oh, remember? Oh yeah, what do you want to do? Oh yeah. Oh well, that's interesting. Oh yeah, I know that place. Oh, I play golf around the corner from it. And we have the idea. First of all, you go into the NatWest, the ones I know around my way, in my banks, the fact that there are any in the high street is a miracle. Well, you go in there. Do you know what? They don't have anybody of any substance there. What they have is normally some very, very charming ladies who say, go and put your guide in this or do that. Right? There is the idea, if you went in and said, I'd like to speak to the chief loan officer, they would think you were being satirical.
Yeah.
They think, right.
There's one in London Bridge that I used to go into from time to time because I might have needed to do something or other because you couldn't do it online or whatever. And you go in there and it's sort of full of people queuing up to see somebody behind a desk. You don't know what for.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you're doing there. And so you go in, you stand 10 minutes, you go, I'm not doing this, you walk out. That's it. That's your interaction with the NatWest Bank.
Mind you, in relation to financial matters, every time anybody ever says, what's your name, you say, I'm not answering that, you walk out again.
Oh, no, unbelievable, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it is
By the way, what was the point of, can I ask you, that last chap was on? What did he represent politically then?
Well, he stood for Advance UK in the Gorton and Denton by-election.
Oh, yeah. How did he do?
Got fewer votes than the monster raving loony party.
Right, okay.
So not very well.
He didn't seem to have, I don't want to be rude about the guy, but he didn't seem really to have any kind of thought process about what the solution was.
Also, I thought what he was saying about the 70s was absolute rubbish. He also stood as a mayoral candidate against Andy Burnham, I think, and didn't win either.
Why does he do this then? Does he enjoy the pain?
I presume he does, yeah. That's why we get him on.
By the way, there was good discussion there about Hugh Edwards. The Hugh Edwards position.
Yes.
And Channel 4, right, Channel 4 is
what
basically...
What are they thinking?
It's basically come to the...
shut it down, shouldn't you?
It's basically a PR idea.
Yeah.
So this idea will be put forward, lots of work. The reason that would have been put out is by Channel 4, who are trying to get the narrative to change from... this is how mad they are from Married at First Sight.
Yes.
Right? They decided, that's terrible publicity.
That's bad news,
We've got a better idea. We've got some very good publicity in that Hugh Edwards story.
Right.
Well, why would they think that is the way forward for their network? If they want to run that network, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Don't be a major network. Come into this world.
Yeah.
Come into the online world and see how you do.
Yeah.
actually they
I've got a couple of updates for you on the online world,
Cool.
right? Robert Peston last week, they launched themselves on YouTube as a Wednesday night.
Completely down the plonker.
6,000 or 7,000, less than 7,000 views.
What, as a standalone show?
As a standalone show. The whole show on YouTube, 7,000, right?
And that does that include, did they use publicity from their network to push the show, or?
Well, they certainly used social media to push it on. So
they spent some money?
They must have spent some money.
Right.
Similarly, Laura Kunsberg, I also checked yesterday, has also launched itself on, and they were the same, 5,000 for the whole show on Sunday.
If you want that kind of crap, you might as well watch the network. You don't need to go. The whole point of your shows and similar shows is that they're actually saying something which sounds like something you'd hear outside a TV studio, and actually seems to represent more what people are thinking than actually people are sitting there listening and thinking this is bloody ridiculous.
Well, I had a great conversation last Friday. We've got our first commercial deal with a company called Tally Money. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I don't. No.
They're run by an Australian guy.
Okay, good.
Very interesting character, who's called Parry, funnily enough.
Well, that's the
which
downside.
is not a great start, but we got on fine. Cameron Parry. Basically, what they do is they run an app and a savings account business. Basically, it's a banking scenario where you give them your money and they convert it into gold. They've got a vault in Switzerland, and they say, forget about the interest rate. Basically, what will happen is that your money will accrue 12% or thereabouts, which is what it's done for the best part of the last 4 or 5 years. 12% over the course of the year, because that's the price of gold going up, because people invest in gold whenever there's a problem.
So gold can go up and down.
But he said to me, yes, it can, and he said to me, but he said the average that they've had since the business started, 12%. He said people have now changed the way that they buy everything in terms of banking, in terms of newspapers, in terms of media, in terms of shopping, in terms of everything that we do is changing, right? And he made the point that the show like this that we are doing is more up the street of people who have had enough of the sort of mainstream telling them what to think, telling them what's going on, telling them how they should vote, telling them all the things that they should believe in, all the things they shouldn't believe in. They've had enough, and they like this independent kind of thought process, where we are more likely to represent what they think about stuff than anybody else.
Yeah, look, I don't doubt that for a second. I mean, congratulations on getting a commercial deal over the line, because it's not easy right now.
It's not.
And
but they've seen the numbers and they like the numbers, and that's why they're here.
Yeah, sure. I don't doubt it, and I think your business aspirations, which have turned this into a network of people who present in similar but not identical fashion on each show, will turn out to be a triumph as well.
I think so.
The world is changing, and so you come to Channel 4. Somebody says, actually, I mean, after all, the guy was a bad guy. He wasn't just somebody who
he wasn't
looked at something.
misunderstood.
No, he was a guy who was trying to encourage young people through money to take part in sexual acts for his pleasure. Actually, he was very lucky, I would have thought, in his prominent position.
He should be in jail.
Not to have
my view.
Not to go to jail. The only point I agreed with, I think, Mr. Buckley about, was that the idea that he's going to turn around on Channel 4 and say, look, my father thought that I should be playing a better style of rugby than I did, and this upset me, and this is the reason why I turned into the kind of person I am today. That if he goes to air to say that, there are two people that need to be criticised. One is the commissioning editor, and two is Hugh Edwards, to think that we give us stuff about what is the reason he was trying to corrupt a youngster.
Yeah, exactly right. And let's not forget as well, without getting too graphic about it, some of the collection of pictures that he had were pictures of children.
At the high end,
what they call
the high end, and they were like 7 and 9.
7 and 9 and 4, I think was what we were being told. So absolutely disgraceful, horrible, ghastly man. And if Channel 4 does do that, I think that should be the end of them. We've got some news to do, haven't we?
Yeah.
Should we do some news?
All. I'm Edward Hughes. Oh joy, Britain's absolutely melting. We've smashed the hottest May Day on record with a balmy 34 degrees Celsius plus. Because nothing says spring bank holiday like sweating in gridlock at Dover, while French border checks turn the M20 into a car park. Meanwhile, ex-SNP boss Peter Murrells finally nicked for pinching £400,000. Shocker. The Party of Independence can't even manage its own finances. And Jimmy Krankie didn't know a thing. Right. Richard III is promising £113 billion in shiny new spending. It's almost as if she thinks it's her money, not ours. Farage reckons the Russians hacked his phone and brilliantly chaotic. Stay hydrated, legends. Laters, tigers.
I don't know what to say about that, to be honest. I mean, can you tell me put a shirt on at least for the next encounter with the news? Let's talk to Robert Jobson, royal author, former Fleet Street, I'm going to say former Fleet Street legend. You can still be a Fleet Street legend. How are you dealing with the old the heat wave? Because
well, I only just got back from. I've just been away and get this thing right would help, wouldn't it? Just been away for a while, and I was on a trip lectured in Alaska after I went to Washington DC.
Very
So it was
nice.
good. Yeah, it's been good. Very nice. So.
Excellent. Well, listen, lots to talk about, I guess. What's going on with Andrew, right? Because it seems to me that the police haven't got much. I mean, I thought it was ridiculous, actually, at the weekend, and I don't know whether, Kelvin, you agree with this, but the Sunday Times splash on Sunday in which it said that they're now investigating Andrew Mountbatten Windsor for behaving inappropriately at Ascot. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, and they wouldn't say what it was that you'd done, but if they're going to do away, if it's going to be illegal to behave inappropriately at Ascot, you know, I'm certainly not going to be able to go anymore, and neither is anybody else.
Mind you, you wouldn't be allowed to go out, would you?
Well, no, that's true. I mean, but what do they, you know, they obviously haven't got much on him, have
I've got no
they?
axe to grind either way. I mean, I just, you know, Andrew sounds a pretty appalling person and all
He
that,
is.
but the reality is we do have a law in this country that you're innocent until proven guilty, and I don't believe the police should be on a fishing exercise saying, people, have you got anything else we can look into? They raided his house, they raided his wood farm, they took away what they wanted and investigated that. That's 3 months ago. You've either got to charge the guy or move on, really. I don't see how you can start now saying, "Oh, now we want to, you know, we'd like people to come forward with extra information." You know, they've done the raid. You know, I think that you're innocent until proven guilty. That's my belief on this, and I've got no, you know, I think he's a pretty awful person. He's clearly lied at Mountbatten Windsor, but the reality is, the police are, you know, acting in a bizarre way in this one, I think.
Well, that's what I think, you know, because on the other hand, you've got Peter Mandelson, who appears to be in no difficulties whatsoever, despite the fact that he was arrested around about the same time, and they've taken all of his stuff away, apart from his phone, apparently, which he's been able to keep. And I'm like you. I just think, you know, I'm certainly no fan of Andrews. I think he's a ghastly individual, as you say, and obviously not a very nice piece of work. However, you know, you can't just keep investigating somebody until you find something. And you go, ooh, behaving inappropriately.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, the point is they went in, boots and all, into his house, and they took away what they've taken away. That was 3 months ago.
Right.
So let's see what they've got. You know, I mean, look, I'm sure that, as the King says, you've got to let the law take its course. And you get all these people on social media and saying, "Oh, he's guilty of this," but you can't run. You know, it's a witch hunt. Otherwise, you can't run. You can't run it like it's McCarthyism. You've got to have evidence. Until you've got real hard evidence, and I think it's time to either put up or shut up, really.
Yeah, I think so. Kelvin, do you agree with that?
Well, I thought it was pretty thin. It was obviously a briefing exercise had gone out as well, because a similar kind of story, I think, appeared on the Telegraph news site. And I am hopeful that this is a last clean-up operation by the police, that they have got something of substance, because Andrew deserves to be living in Sandringham. I don't know whether you know the Sandringham area at all. There is absolutely nothing going on out there. It's basically Lincolnshire without the home.
The thing you used to have to worry about was Prince Philip coming out and driving into you.
Yeah,
that's the only problem you had in Sandringham, you know.
But there is nothing going on out there. The idea that every day he gets up, he has to walk round Sandringham and then go back inside the house cheers me up no end. So that in itself is a sentence.
Yes.
And if you're living in Sandringham and you feel offended, well, I feel sorry for you. But anyway, look. So I think Andrew, his life is at an end. He's ruined some people's lives. He's told the most shocking lies, thinking he could get away with it. And if he gets charged, excellent. If he doesn't, I'd be grateful if the police stopped giving briefings.
Well, yeah, but at what
Sunday
point
Times.
do you say we haven't got anything on this guy and we're going to have to? I think they're frightened because we now live in a world, Rob, where the police, because everybody thinks Andrew's a bad guy, they have to get some kind of result, right? I can't see them
There's only
doing
one.
that.
It's one police force at the moment, Thames Valley Police. That
Right.
clearly along the lines they've had to police Prince Andrew at Royal Lodge and Windsor Castle, and from my knowledge, he's been pretty odious to a lot of police officers. So maybe they jumped the gun, some of the higher ranking officers. But bottom line is, you've got to get evidence. It's no good relying on hearsay. It's no good relying on conversations that someone's then going to. The idea that they're trying to get the evidence from this woman that's in her 20s, or however old she was, flown in apparently to see Andrew as a prostitute. Look, there's an awful lot that's out there against him, but you've got to question how much of it is actually you're going to get enough evidence with the Crown Prosecution Service. And if you haven't got it, you haven't got it. It doesn't matter how guilty he might sound. You've got to have hard and fast evidence, and that's frankly all that counts. And that evidence has got to stack up in a court of law and still get past a jury. So look, the other thing I've always thought that was odd on this one is that, remember the collapse of the Burrell trial? That collapsed because Burrell apparently told the Queen that he'd been storing all Diana's goods, and that was the reason the case collapsed, because she couldn't give evidence in a court of law in which the Crown brings the case. The case is brought in the case of the Crown. Well, if Andrew has spoken to his brother about these incidents, and then Andrew's lawyers want to bring Charles in as a witness, they can't do it, and the case would collapse.
Right. And what do you think it's done, all of this, to the Queen's legacy? Because a lot of people have said to me, it's a shame that this has all happened, because it's kind of cast a bit of a shadow over the Queen's kind of final years, because she obviously must have known more than she let on. She gave him a load of money to settle the case with Virginia Giuffre. Has her reputation been damaged, you think?
Yeah, I think it has a bit. I mean, the reality is, who gives 20 million, 12 million, whatever millions it is to anybody without apparently ever having believed you've ever met them. I mean, that's what we're supposed to believe with Prince Andrew. That's the claims that were made. But who would then pass on that money for someone to quieten down the whole thing? It's all very odd. It's all very strange. But the reality is, as I say, there needs to be more. There needs to be, I think, in this evidence, and that's all there is that matters. And at the moment, they're now looking at, I think, of Virginia Giuffre and what she said. Virginia Giuffre's dead. She's not going to be giving her evidence, won't hold. The bottom line is that we're in the situation where Andrew is, as I said, he's living up in Sandringham, and that's probably where he's going to stay.
Yeah, he must have enjoyed reading about his former wife, Fergie, and her special relationship with P. Diddy. I found that particularly distasteful.
I'm not 100% sure.
Kelvin, but the old
I'm not
baby
sure
oil
I
scenario.
believe too much of that one, to be honest. I mean, I believe many things, but Fergie and P. Diddy does sound like something we might have run in the 90s, but I'm not sure there's anything there's an awful lot really truthful about that whatsoever.
Robert, you don't look too well for having somebody who's just been on holiday, by the way. Is everything all right?
I'm looking all right, actually. Maybe it's my beard.
You're going to grow a beard, are you?
Well, no, I just come back from 3 weeks. I've been lecturing in Alaska. It's been on a cruise ship, so I'm feeling quite well, really. It may be the fact that I'm probably a little jet lagged, Kelvin. That's all.
Oh right.
Kelvin, by the way, specialises in telling people they don't look very well. Which coming
I'm
from
worried
a
about
man
him becoming
of his
a doctor
years,
in his old age.
I mean,
the fact that I'm still here,
I'm not sure.
The fact that I'm still here is a testimony to my health.
We had a guy,
and haven't changed. Changed a bit.
He really hasn't. We had a guy called Mr. Pothole on the other week, and Kelvin said, "You don't look too well. Is everything all right?" He goes, "I've just had heart surgery." I go, "Would you mind not upsetting all the guests, who come on?" But
no, I'm feeling. If I don't look quite well, that's not like
you
I
look
can do
great.
with that. But the feeling
I think you look great.
Does not look.
He looks great.
Okay, let's have a vote on this.
I've seen Robert many times over the years.
We should have a vote. We should ask your viewers to have a vote on whether Rob Jobson looks well or not.
I think he looks
we
great.
should freeze that frame and we should put it up there with a vote against him. How long do you think Rob Jobson's got to go?
Well, I mean, rushed off to the doctor. water.
He's been giving lectures to polar bears in Alaska. He's boiled the arse off them.
We could go the other way and go, you know, who's going to live longer, Robert Johnson or Kelvin Mackenzie?
Well,
you know,
I think that's right.
I'm happy for that.
You good with that?
I'm happy for that. I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Let's talk a bit. I'm being asked about the painting behind you. Is it your own work or is it?
Which one? Oh no, yeah, that is. Yeah, when I get a moment in between worrying about my mortality, I start painting.
Can we look?
That's good.
Yeah, there we go.
That's good.
That is good. I've seen some of Robert's paintings before. Actually.
They were done by that Vietnamese bus artist. Do you remember those guys in Vietnam? Where a picture of a London bus.
All I know is.
I've got my Scoop of the Year award here as well. That's
that's good. What did you get that for?
Charles to marry Camilla, a long time ago, as Cam would say.
Brilliant.
Your last exclusive.
Yes, well,
Charles to marry Camilla.
Yeah, but since then you've gone into the more, shall we say, the more sort of secluded world
he's gone upmarket
of books. He's he's very upmarket now, and also he does a lot of stuff in America. Talking of Vietnam, it says hotter than Hanoi. I don't know why they've done that. Why would you say it's hotter than Hanoi?
Because
nobody knows how hot Hanoi is.
I think they get the general sense of however hot it is, it's going to be bloody hotter than it is here normally.
Yeah, but it says it's hotter than Lagos, Cairo, Damascus, and Hanoi in the copy.
If it's hotter than bloody Lagos, it is hot.
But why haven't they? But hang on.
Africa is hot.
Yeah, but why haven't
we are normally cold.
Yes.
That is what defines
a
story. I thought we got Rob
that.
Johnson in there. He's been making them up for 50 years.
Yeah,
Look at that. He's now gone international.
Right.
He's now boring the arse off people in Alaska.
But you kept running the stories he was making up. But why doesn't
is true.
Why doesn't it say hotter than Lagos then? Why does it say hotter than Hanoi?
Because people are concerned about whether we should be hotter than Lagos because it might attract people from Lagos to come and live here.
I thought it might be. See,
I think it's just the word hotter and Hanoi. I think it's the H's.
It's the alliteration,
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're very clever on the Times. They always used to tell me how clever they were. In fact, the Times radio people have to tell everybody how clever they are because you wouldn't know it listening to them, right? In a sort of humble brag sort of way, you know. What's the name of that guy? Hugo Rifkin, you know, terribly intelligent, witty, fantastic. That's the advert, right?
Do you know the bloke who'll bring a tear to a glass eye? Who's their breakfast bloke?
Stig Abel.
Unable.
Unable.
Or in fact, Dis, as he's known. He honestly,
he's Mr. Humble Brag.
If you wanted to say, we're trying to put together a breakfast show, and we want to guarantee a low audience.
Yeah.
Have you ever met that guy? Stig Abel, we'll put him on because he will see that he bring tear to a glass eye.
Do you know when they usurped the studios of Talk Radio?
Oh, did they?
And also then usurped the signal as well. So the reason they got a reasonable jump when they first went on to
I see,
radio
because it was a better signal.
They took the DAB frequency from Talk Radio. They nicked it.
Oh.
And the studio, right?
When you say nicked it was a corporate decision. I don't think stealing is
No, it was a corporate decision because everybody hated Talk Radio in the building, right? As they still do.
People are asking if Rob sells his pictures.
Oh, all right. People are asking if you sell your pictures.
That's a picture of himself, is it?
Do you sell your
I've got a whole number of pictures. I could show you the.
Go and get them. Go and get them.
I'll go and get one. I'll show you one.
Yeah. So while he's doing that. While he's doing that, right?
Yeah.
So I get called in by Stig Abel, right? Who was also sort of boss of the station at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Him and Liam Fisher, you know, another genius.
Oh, dear,
and I'll sit there.
IQ of the year.
Yeah, and they said, right, we're not sure if Talk Radio is going to exist after we launch, you know, because.
Well, hold on. Shouldn't we be talking about these photos?
We'll get there. All right, hang on. All right, let's have a look at
that's
this.
rather good. What's that of? What's that of, Rob?
That's
a seascape.
That's just a machine.
Yeah, no, but is it one out of his window or something?
Well, they're not far away. So there's another one there.
Whereabouts do you live then, Rob?
I'm down by Thorpe Bay, you see. So.
Thorpe Bay?
It's that now South End. There's another little
down near South End.
Yeah.
Sydney Opera House, there you go.
I want to buy his Opera House one.
All right, Pooch wants to buy the Opera House one. How much are you selling it for?
Well, I don't know. I'd probably give it to him for charity. Why not? Raise money for something.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's getting my house in France.
Yeah. That's Pooch's charity. That's great, though. Well, I think, and do you find it's like soothing and calming when you
therapeutic?
Paint? Yeah,
therapeutic. It helps me get over my illness that I'm going through.
It gets you to deal with it.
don't think
tries
it
to
should
sort
be.
of.
My
No, it's
dad
quite good.
my
I've been
dad
doing
was
a
an
few.
artist, right? My dad actually painted for a living as well.
Did he?
And yeah, he was originally a graphic artist. He works in the Evening News, a daily sketch, but he was trained at Glasgow School of Art.
He gave birth to a piss artist.
Well, I can't draw to save my life. I mean, if you ask me to draw a matchstick figure, that's about as much as I can do.
Right.
Can't draw anything. But my son painted a picture when he was about 10 or 11, which we auctioned for charity, and he made about 10 grand off it. He was really good. It was like a copy of a Van Gogh.
Does he still do it?
No, he gave it up.
Oh, well, that's mad.
I know.
Mad.
I know.
He's that talented. He should be doing
Yeah, I know. We can't stop you without talking about the dreaded duo from Montecito, Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
He was back in the news the other week because he apparently decided to mention how bad Israel was without talking about October the 7th, which got him into a bit of trouble. And she was in Switzerland recently, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. I mean, I was out in LA. I had a talk with Andrew Morton. We were at this club called the Jonathan Club, and they were on. Everyone was sort of. It was surprising how they're really not on the conversation list at all. You know, and Meghan and Harry, given where we were, and this club we were doing a conversation in is quite an upmarket thing, right in the business end of all the society people from LA, if there are such people, and really they're not included at any of the invite lists of a lot of things. They're not really, they're just out there in Montecito and on their own. So I mean, I think whatever they've done, I mean, I feel that Harry he set out what he wanted to do. If he's now wanting to clearly have, thinking we should be listening to what he has to say, and I don't really know why. He's an army captain that has, he ran Invictus Games, which was basically a good thing to do, and I think it helped a lot of people. But by leaving his position, he actually left that in the lurch in a way, which is a terrible shame because they were getting back money. So I don't know why he thinks we should even be listening to him. And I think the fact that he makes these big statements and everything just so it coincides with what's going on with the royal family is a little bit sad. But no one's really listening to them anymore. All this talk about them saying, "Oh, will they come back? Won't they come back?" It'll be a disaster. The fact is, I think they've made their bed. They've got to lie in it. They clearly don't enjoy lying in it, really.
No, they don't. And I thought it was also kind of sad in a way that, Charles goes over to see Trump and he's in the same country basically as his son, and they didn't see each other. It's actually quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sad, but they can't really, can they? I mean, King had a job to do. He was on the East Coast. The sadness is not so much seeing them. I think it's no relationship between a grandchildren and a grandfather. That's the sadness. But, when you've written what you've written and you've said what you've said and cashed in the way you have, I don't really think that the King will be in any rush to sort of build those bridges. Having covered that trip with the King, I think it went very well. The whole thing went very well, and I think any sort of distractions, and that's what Harry and Meghan would have just spoiled it, really.
Yeah. Final question for you. You've been married a few times, a bit like Kelvin. Have you ever had a spouse who bought a secret, Jaguar, maybe a motorhome, coffee machine you didn't know anything about?
No, as I've said, I refer everything to the legal gentleman when it comes to these sort of questions.
That's the cost. It cost you a
all
few bob
wonderful
over the
people.
years.
I've got all wonderful people and completely honest, that's what I would say.
Brilliant. Good to see you. How about this? I haven't laughed so much today. Just cracking banter between these three. Well, listen, this is what we do. Imagine when we all used to work together. Well, Kelvin fired me once when I didn't even work for him. It's extraordinary. Anyway,
when did that happen?
When I was in New York. Martin Dunn came up to me once. Martin Dunn, you might remember, Rob.
I do remember.
Ended up being he's a very wealthy guy now, lives in Connecticut, ended up running the Daily News, New York Daily News. He was the New York correspondent. And I used to go in and do a Sunday shift for him because he didn't fancy working on a Sunday. He was down at the News Limited building, New York Post building, down South Street, Seaport. And he came up to Costello's one night after I'd done a shift. Tuesday, Wednesday. He said, have you ever upset Kelvin? I said, I don't think so. I said, I don't think so, no. He said, he rang me up and said, I don't want him working for us ever again. I said, really? Well, I can't imagine why. He said, I think he might be confusing you with somebody else. I said, well, maybe. I said, I don't think I've done anything. Anyway, don't worry about that. Just keep doing the Sunday shift. And I called Tom Petrie up, who's the news. He said, look, just don't put your name on the stories. Just put somebody else's name. And he won't know. So I'll just continue. 100 quid a shift.
For a year. Well, that's the best way to do it.
It was. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Anyway, listen, Rob, great to see you. We must have lunch now that you're back.
If you make it.
How's your... Yeah. It's like the old Bernard Shaw quote, isn't it?
What?
You know, when it was him and Churchill.
If I make it, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah. When he sent something like he sent a note to Churchill when his new play was opening up, and he said, please come, bring a friend if you've got one. And Churchill said, well, I'd love to come. He said, I can't make it. He said, give me an invite to the second night if there is one.
I like that.
Anyway, listen, I'll see you soon.
Wrong.
Robert
See you
Johnson,
soon, guys. Yeah,
good to see you, man.
Cheers, yeah.
Now, here's one
I'm
for
just
you.
off to the doctors. See you later.
Keep well. Keep well.
Now, this will amuse you, right?
Go on.
Look at this. A beautiful postcard arrived in my postbox yesterday.
Oh, right.
From Portugal.
Postcard, old-fashioned postcard.
Old-fashioned, but very sort
Where
of
from?
quality. From Portugal, right? From Portugal.
Oh, right.
I start reading it.
Yeah.
Hello from Lisbon.
Hello from Lisbon. This is your ex-wife.
I wish you were here, right?
Wish you were here.
As I walk through the streets here, every sip of Negroni, every bite of Donata, in all the beauty that life has to offer, I think of you and I think of us. Oh, and I thought, hang on a minute.
Who's that? J.K. Rowling?
Well, I then looked at the addressee. And it was not me. It was somebody else. It's been sent to it's been put in my mailbox, right?
We sent the wrong people.
It's addressed to. I'm not going to give the name out because that might be wrong. But it's somebody who lives in a similar square to mine, but it's 2 squares over.
Oh, I see.
And it's obviously her beau of some kind.
The post. So the post person, shall we say, has actually made a mistake.
It's got it completely wrong.
So you've now advertised that you have an inefficient post service.
I'm afraid
it is
so.
interesting that the fact that that's come 1,500 miles and it's been put into a ship or put in a plane, carried by a car, done everything, and then the final 100 yards, some dim-witted post person has stuck it.
But I started thinking last night. I thought, imagine if you're the intended recipient of that, right?
Yeah.
And either she or he, I can't work out which is which. Yeah. Says, you went all the way to Portugal, you never even sent me a postcard. And they end up breaking up as a result of their communication breakdown.
It sounds as though that could be the script of another Netflix streamer, doesn't it? The other thing is that if she's sipping the Negroni and she's looking for love, perhaps you could nip out there.
Well, it's possibly true, yeah. Because
also, it should be in Italy, Negroni.
Well, they drink Negronis in London. It's not, Is it an Italian drink?
Yeah, of course it is.
Is it? See, I didn't know that.
Okay, all right. Anyway. Well, look, here's the opportunity. There's a woman yearning for love.
I don't know if it's a woman.
Who's now going to be rejected because the note was never responded to.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, I forgot the killer line at the end. Yours always, Bob. So it's the guy who's on holiday.
Oh, right. And who is he writing to? Is he writing to a woman or a man?
Well, it's one of those names that could be either.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to give the name away.
Okay.
But it could be a man or a woman.
Which is it more likely to be? Male
I think
or
it's
female?
more likely to be a woman he's writing to.
Okay. Right. Well, that's.
Can I?
Yeah.
Jan. It's Jan.
Yeah.
She's a doctor.
How do you mean?
Dr. Jan. It's the name's there. Don't read it out.
Really?
Well, you try and get.
Are you sure it's Jan, not Dan?
It's definitely a J.
Okay. All right. Well, look.
Anyway, Bob.
Jan, Bob. Sorry that your romance never made it. Sorry that the dying embers were broadcast on one of life's more successful TV stations. And Jan, if you're available next Wednesday, perhaps we'll share a Negroni.
A Negroni?
Yeah.
Or 2. I actually had to ask permission from Pooch if I could do that, because in America that's an offence to read anybody else's post, to read anybody else's mail. It's a federal offence.
Right. Okay.
So you can't open anybody's post. You can't look
into
anybody's mail.
Is it an offence over here?
I don't think it is.
Well, you're about to find out.
But it's a postcard. I mean, it's not like I opened anything. It's not like,
It's your property.
And it was also delivered into. I've got a little mailbox. It was delivered into my mailbox.
When I last looked, you are neither Jan nor Bob. and in fact you have used that
Yeah, but I didn't
postcard
know I
in
was-
order to mop up a couple of minutes of broadcast time, and I think that's personally offensive. And if I may be forced to contact Channel 4 to see whether it's worthwhile turning into a documentary.
You could contact Ofcom, but of course they have no jurisdiction here, unfortunately, for that.
No.
Which is
Okay,
good.
well,
Long may it
let's
continue.
have a collective raspberry to Ofcom. One,
Yeah.
two, three.
There we are. Excellent. Should we have some news with the topless Edward Hughes?
Good morning, all. I'm Edward Hughes. Oh joy, Britain's absolutely melting. We've smashed the hottest May Day on record with a balmy 34 degrees Celsius plus. Because nothing says spring bank holiday like sweating in gridlock at Dover, while French border checks turn the M20 into a car park. Meanwhile, ex-SNP boss Peter Murrells finally nicked for pinching £400,000. Shocker. The Party of Independence can't even manage its own finances. And Jimmy Cranky didn't know a thing. Right. Richard III is promising £113 billion in shiny new spending. It's almost as if she thinks it's her money, not ours. Farage reckons the Russians hacked his phone and everyone's pretending social media isn't rotting the kids. Classic Britain. Boiling, broke, and brilliantly chaotic. Stay hydrated, legends. Later's Tigers.
Yeah, I think we should get his shirt back on for tomorrow, even though it's going to be very warm today. Actually, we should check the weather, actually. See
It's still going to be warm all week.
25 degrees currently. It says the high is going to be 33.
Yeah, it's
degrees.
Terrible.
Let's get...
We could have had that. Jim Dale agreed to come on.
Yeah, but
we
he's agreed to come on.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want him on, though.
No, don't.
No, I don't want to waste my time. The guy's a complete moron. Super chats. Uncle Joe says this. Of course, Sturgeon knew. She just plays the "if you love me, you take the blame" card. Yeah, but you see, as Kelvin said, they didn't have a proper marriage. Barker says he's selling them on for cash. Love you, MG. Is that who's? Oh, Murrell. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, put him on eBay. Lulu says this. Mike, thank you so much for all the laughs amid the serious stuff. This is not just for Pooch's chest. Best news show ever. Laura in Barnet.
And here's Laura's birthday.
Pooch's chest. Laura Jane's birthday, yeah. Can I get a birthday shout out today from Mike? I'm 35 today. Certainly, Laura Jane. Very many happy returns.
She looks better than Rob Jobson, doesn't she? Let's be honest.
Poor old Rob. Watson has sent us a bunch of money. Thank you very much indeed. Very kind. Somebody sent me a cheque the other day, which I'm going to try and deposit later on this afternoon.
You can deposit them with difficulty, but you're right.
With some difficulty, yeah. Also, do you know the problem I've got? Mike, you need water, says Laura Jane. Yeah, I know. I'm slightly feeling a bit dehydrated, luckily. Couple more. Jane says, I think it's pointless arguing about who to vote for. The fate of this country will not be decided at the ballot box, but on our streets, sadly.
Yeah.
Well, don't know about that. And Griff says, Mike, with respect, you may have missed Nick's point. He was saying that they all promise change, none deliver in it for themselves. Yeah, but I was asking him what the change is meant to be. It's easy to say they don't know what the change is, but what, who is going to give us the idea that change is coming and that it's the change that we want to vote for? Because they all say it, don't they? But you don't actually know what they're going to do. I mean, the only thing I was encouraged by with reform the other day was Danny Kruger doing that little speech about doing away with the Cabinet Office, which I quite liked, actually, to be honest. But I wonder if that's a bit too kind of nerdy it's too, for most people. Yeah, it's not something that people get into, is it?
Much too wordy.
They understand immigration, they understand the NHS, they understand the cost of living, they understand, things getting cheaper. They don't, I think, understand the inner workings of the civil service.
No, but I suppose
Is Danny Kruger too clever for his own good, do you think?
No, it's not. He's too clever. It's that he adds a bit of heft to just, ban people, reduce this, do that. A little bit of thinking, I think, is a good thing. And this is where I think this is what makes Farage a much more capable politician in this world than some of the others. What I do think is I'm looking forward to, if, for instance, and I see this as almost a racing certainty over time, we start having proportional representation, single transferable vote, a change. I definitely think there's a role for the Enterprise Party, which is basically a party aimed at helping, appealing to small business.
Yeah.
Small business, bigger business, middle-sized business, actually only ever concerned about the injustices that are going on in commercial life, which at the end of the day end up with the customer, right? So the days of things going up in price, oh, we'll cut our margins. I promise you that moment has gone.
Yeah.
What people are saying is we're being forced to pay more to the government. You can pay more for it, the customer. Honestly, somebody has to fight for the small business person. And I don't think, with much as I admire Farage, I don't think he's the person to do it. Most people are caught up in migration or benefits or stuff like that. I just want somebody to be focused on that. And they will probably end up with 2 or 3% of the vote. And on getting that, at least they'd have 4 or 5 MPs or 6 or 7 MPs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the economy definitely needs to somehow be recovered. Because
We want the economy because I want my kids.
It's been lost.
I want my kids to be in work.
Yeah.
All right, okay, you can say, well, you know, you got a bloody cheek pointing out that Rob Jobson's not in much shape. I totally get that, right? But the thing I'm most concerned about are my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Even my own children, you know, they've made their path, and it's up to them really how things work out. The grandchildren, it seems unreasonable to me to put them through an education system and then at the end of it say, well, actually, you run up a 60, 70 grand bill, but I've got some bad news for you. There is no work.
There isn't
or
any
there
work.
is so much reduced work that you're going to have to do something or other. You know, actually, a bit of sacrifice might be helpful, but actually to find that the actual door is shut to you when you knock on it, I find that could lead to don't worry about anything else. That would lead to a revolution.
Well, somebody said to me the other day, you know, when we were growing up, if you lost a job, and, you know, yes, we were very fortunate, worked in a very good industry at the time, you could literally get another job tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now it's not like that. You lose a job now, and you know, you're staggering around for months before you can even see. I mean, people say they send off 200 job applications before they even get an answer for one, you know. Anyway, let's talk to Godfrey Bloom, who is the man to speak to of the moment. Godfrey, very good morning to you, sir.
You're looking good. You're making Rob Jobson look good anyway.
You're looking a little bit on the fuzzy side. Okay. You were looking slightly fuzzy. I think there was an issue with your Wi-Fi. Is your Wi-Fi okay?
It looks all right now.
There's a lot of noise.
Perfect, mate. As always.
Yeah, no, good to see you, Godfrey. Let's talk about what's going on, because we've been trying to discover today what the change is that everybody wants to have. You know, Nigel Farage wants change. You know, Andy Burnham wants change. Rupert Lowe wants change. Even Keir Starmer apparently wants change, but they don't actually tell us what the change is.
Yes, it's a little bit of a problem because I would argue, I think I might have said this before, rather if one of the problems we have that we've gone past the ability of a parliamentary election to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I would regard the situation as now absolutely dire, and I don't believe we both know that legacy media isn't handling it. That's point one. And point two, nobody really seems to know how to deal with it in any detail. And you've got this sort of weird thing called the Overton window. And it was interesting, was it not, when Nigel Farage said, oh, you know, you're going to privatise the NHS and all the rest of it, so on and so forth. Because of this Overton window, he said, no, it will always remain free at the point of delivery, which means no change. You can fiddle with it as long as you like. And the NHS is right in the front burner, as you were saying just a few minutes ago, from people electorally. But no, his party, it's not radical. You know, he's got some deadbeat Conservatives come across. He's got one or two quite competent people. They're putting forward, in my view, a very good candidate in Makerfield, for example, which is what representative democracy should be all about. It should be about ordinary people, in the main, representing their constituencies, which, of course, is something which is long gone. So who's radical enough to actually stop what is now a very, very serious problem? And I don't think, with the exception perhaps of Rupert Lowe, who's still a very small voice in the game, who I believe to be radical, whether the reins are going to be give to a true radical. And of course, he's kept out of legacy media. There's no way they're going to let him on it, legacy media or TV or the BBC or anything very much. So it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you say radical, but radical means a lot of things to different people, I suppose. And I often don't think of this country as being particularly radical. I don't think people, generally speaking, want radicals, you know? They prefer to have a kind of... I mean, I know a lot of people are now saying we need to change the system, we need to make it different, we need to make it better, we need to somehow reinvent it. But in a way, I think British people are very reticent, really, to change anything radically, don't you?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think historically that was the point. But that was not the point in 1640, when suddenly radicalism became essential because the king had gone largely bonkers, Charles I, with the excuse me, ordinary people. You could say anti-radical, but you could say conservative with a small c, Mike, couldn't you?
Yes.
You could also say conservative with a small c. But I do believe that we've got to a situation now which has gone beyond that, and only radical. Well, of course, that's what Rupert Lowe is saying. Restore. He's saying he would claim he's not radical. He just wants to get back to where we were, and that is now radical. We have a politicized civil service, which is a disaster. Politicized education system, politicized police force. And indeed, at the senior level, a politicized armed forces. And I can tell you that is absolutely the truth of the matter. So the question is, I think people now would like to return in a radical way to conservative with a small c, if that isn't a little bit of Irish.
I wonder whether I could just raise a point there. I think I rather object to the suggestion that Rupert Lowe is radical as though it's an endorsement of what he says, because I really do object to one of the things that he said, and I'd like to hear your views about it. And he agreed to put illegal immigrants on a midge-infested island and let the midges do the rest. Now, there's a lot of words you could use, a lot of adjectives you could use about radical, but actually that is not, to my mind, acceptable.
Well, yes, of course, I'm not a spokesman for Rupert Lowe, and you can always take little bits of what people have said, over the years. But I think what he was talking about was not so radical. Probably he was talking about we've got to have some kind of deterrence from illegal immigrants, and that would be his view of doing something which you could say. There are people, I can tell you, who wouldn't go on air to say it, that think we ought to have machine gun posts or fast boats shooting illegal immigrants. Now, it depends where you want to pick it. That isn't my view, but this is a very difficult game to play. But my view is that with the amount of illegal immigration and overall immigration and the overall welfare budgets, which are now completely and totally out of control, I would argue that you have to have a radical in charge, a competent radical, to actually unwind the reasons that we've gone down the lavatory. And we've got to bear in mind, have we not, that the big part of our demise has been under the Conservative government. It's been Conservative governments in the main which have dragged us down the lavatory. So I think we will need to, it's why they're being proposed. But yes, you could pick all sorts of things out, can't you?
Wouldn't you also say as well, Godfrey, that the way that radicalism works actually is what's happened since Tony Blair got into power in 1997, where there was a very radical agenda that nobody really knew about. And the radicalism that happened under Tony Blair's government and the kind of reconstruction of various different institutions and the creation of the Supreme Court and the kind of tying in with Brussels more so than we'd ever been, all happened kind of behind everybody's back because we weren't really paying attention. So it takes a while. So if Rupert Lowe was wanting to be radical, he couldn't do it overnight, could he?
No, indeed he couldn't. And you're quite right in what you say. I mean, Blair was extremely radical. We now have a situation where senior civil servants do not report to their minister, which is massive, which is how the civil service has been politicised. So you have all sorts of people, and the judiciary, as we know, you have people who were Fabians at university. They're extreme left, and they infest all our old institutions in the old days, which they wouldn't be allowed. You wouldn't be allowed to get to a senior role in the civil service if you were a political activist in that way. And the same with Sonia Poulton is doing a very good job of exposing some of these Fabian judges who are coming to the most extraordinary anti-English law ideas and solutions, which is a real problem, because what we used to have is a totally independent judiciary, which is now gone as well, like the police, an independent police force. And this is what we have. So I would argue, yes, you're right. It started with Blair. that degree of radicalism. But then we also have, if I may offend some people, I'm afraid, we have an educational system where your average member of the electorate, 80% of the electorate, has not had the benefit of a formal education. So they don't know anything about the principles of English law. They don't understand the concept of our democracy. They don't understand anything. So it's very easy to take it away. I sometimes mention this as an analogy, if I may. Our drawing room is actually full of knickknacks from our travels and all the rest of it. Some might be an expensive silver snuff box inherited. Another might be a ghastly present from Venice, a plastic gondola. Now, we have big parties, or used to have big parties. We wouldn't know if any of that was stolen. If somebody put any of that in their pocket, it'd be years before we even know where it had gone. And we have a system now, I'm afraid, with a very appalling state educational system. People do not know what's been taken from them. They do not know what their birthright is. And, for example, the principles of English law, trial by jury. They've had things taken away, and they don't know they've been taken away. I mean, Blair was taking them away in 1998.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean about the whole prospect of radicalism is that stuff has happened already, and that the reason we are where we are is because of radicalism, right? That's what I think, anyway. And so, therefore, radicalism may not be the answer because that may just make it worse.
Well, yes, but somebody's got to write something down. It's the point that you made, Mike, earlier. You've got to. What are they going to do? So what's Nigel? Let's have a long list of stuff. Let's have a sheet of paper, Nigel Farage. What are you actually going to do? Other than reckon, yeah, we all know that Starmer's hopeless. We know this government's hopeless. We know the previous government was hopeless. But I've got a feeling that when it comes to reform, I think you'll find that it's don't frighten the horses when the chips are down. And this chap that they've got, Bakerfield, who's a plumber, who'll be, I know, believe me, I know the artisans. I drink with the artisans up here in Yorkshire, I can tell you. And they tend to tell it how it is or how they see it. It won't be long before he's gagged. You mark my words. The first thing that'll happen if he gets elected, he'll be gagged.
Well, you never know. But that is the problem, though, because I think a bit like what I've just said, I think Nigel Farage has worked out that if you do scare the horses and frighten them, you suddenly become the Rupert Lowe figure as opposed to the Nigel Farage figure. And despite the fact that a lot of people on the right are saying, oh, the thing is Farage hasn't really got it, he's just become part of the mainstream. That's where the votes are, in a way, isn't it?
Yes, you could argue that. But I don't think that's therefore going to save us. And I think the situation now has gone far beyond whatever we've seen, not in our entire history, but in our history. And we need to just make sure that we understand exactly what are the doing things. At Ashridge's management course, one of the things that we were told when we went away and I was a young man, they said, now, what are the doing things? They used to write them up on a flip chart. What are the doing things? So I would like to say you're elected tomorrow, you've got a 400 majority or something, Mr. Farage. What are you going to do? Are you going to just wring your hands and worry about the European Court of Human Rights? Are you going to wring your hands and say, I can't do anything because the civil service won't let me? Oh, I can't do anything because the judiciary system is... What are you actually going to do physically to change anything? And you made the point when just before I came on, you were making the point, Mike, quite rightly, that everybody talks a good story, but what are they bloody well going to do?
Yeah, and that is the question. That really is the question. Godfrey, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Godfrey Blue, making the case for change again. Kelvin,
what's Godfrey's background?
He was a member of UKIP in the European Parliament.
Okay.
Elected.
What was he in business? Or
member.
Something?
He's a businessman, I believe. Yeah, exactly right. And so your cri de coeur about business, I think, is right. I think everything leads down from that.
We want our country to be more economically.
If it's economically
prosperous.
viable and people have got the opportunity to make money and they've got the opportunity to start a business and they've got the opportunity to be, creative, I guess is the word, whether it's financially creative, commercially creative, whatever. Everything good comes from that.
Yeah.
And nothing good comes from the opposite of it, which is where we are now.
Yeah.
Right?
And we seem to be that every time a decision is to be made, the decision is let's give some more money to somebody not to produce anything,
right.
Rather than saying, is there a way we can make the business people wealthier? I don't mind them getting wealthier because they're going to then invest in other things.
Yeah.
So they make more profits, they will invest. They make less profits, I guarantee to you, they do not invest.
They don't, and they haven't because they haven't got the money.
They haven't got the money, but also they haven't got the personal energy to go and do it. They're flat out doing what they're doing. They had a good year last year. This year, bloody awful. Why NI's gone up? Minimum pay's gone up. Business tax relief has been scrapped. There's a whole series of things. Now, these are all, they sound pretty, to ordinary people, they sound pretty boring things. When you collectivise them, honestly, they are nightmarish for people.
But the economic literacy of this government was proven, I think, wasn't it, this week, by this ludicrous idea that they're going to give, a break to people taking their families to theme parks. I mean, how out of touch do you want a government to be, right? 400 quid it will take, unless you're, of course, on universal credit, in which case you can go for £1, to the Tower of London. But if you want to take your wife and your 2 kids to the Tower of London, it's going to cost you not far off 200 quid, right? And they're going to give you something like, 5 quid off.
5 quid off.
It's a joke, isn't it?
And not only that, the collective cost of that is 300 million. We haven't got 300 million. We're paying 100 billion a year to our creditors for the money that we've taken over there. So we know we're skinned. And then we said, I've got a bloody good idea. We'll give 300 million to it, which is of no account either way, right? And honestly, it's things like that. A lot of 300 millions are being spent by a government that doesn't care. And what it's trying to do, and believes it's going to be successful, and who knows in 3 years' time, is by keep on bribing our kind of client state. Right, we're going to get through. We're going to have a chance again. Yeah, you may have a chance, and you will have destroyed our country.
Well, we see
all.
the story we haven't talked about this morning, an exclusive in the Mail today, page 2. Militant unions plot a winter of discontent. They're all back in Burnham, right? Because they want Burnham in as Prime Minister, because they think
they've got the new laws.
He'll give them a bunch of bumper pay rises. But if not, they're threatening to go on strike. It'll be just like the 70s all over again.
Well, not only that, I read the other week that one of the interesting aspects is that the National Education Union has a very left-wing General Secretary, Chief Executive. Yeah, strangely. And actually, they're looking that what they do is they're trying to hire activists, literally hirings. The money's good, pension's good, they say all this. Their job is particularly to cause trouble at a local level. And then collectively all come together and go on a school strike. Now, I'm working on the assumption that teachers are not stupid, that they will not be manipulated for political reasons, and they are not prepared to strike. So I think that...
Some of them, I think, probably.
Some of them are, but I'd say the vast majority say this is a pretty good job on pretty good money, and we don't wish to go down the doctor's route. But
the doctors are the same. There's an awful lot of doctors I speak to who don't go on strike. They have a junior doctor's strike, and there's plenty of them that don't go out. They're not members of the BMA. They're not interested. Francis Foster's here. He's going to talk to us in a bit about. He's got a new book out. He was a teacher.
Was he?
And he's now part of the Trigonometry podcast.
Okay.
Very, very clever man. And he's going to tell us why you should never
say
become...
he's a clever man, in what way do you say that?
I mean that only clever people are invited on. You're the exception. You're the only stupid person we let on the show. There we are. He just tees them all up for me, doesn't he? Let's get a few comments in. It's 9:29. Come on. Here we go. Brilliant show today, Mark. I just love the banter between 3 intelligent men.
Well, hold on
is that
a second.
Pooch you're talking about? From a woman? Oh, very good. Vixen says, who will cover Mike on the show?
He's not going on holiday.
No, I'm not allowed to go on holiday. Pooch is making me go on holiday because he says otherwise I'm going to go mad. He may well be right. How about...
What do you mean May?
Yeah, this one. This is from Ray. Hey, Bob, can you stick your postcard where the sun don't shine? You said you were popping out for a pint of milk. Jan. Nice try. I mean, it's great, isn't it? There's a whole story there, the whole book in this postcard. One from Seaside Babe. I want more change in my pocket and less taxation. Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely right. Talking of profligate wastes of money, Russell Quirk, who was in here yesterday, is now officially working as a councillor in Essex. And he said it's been a real eye-opener seeing the way that these people who work in the public sector and who run things actually have a view about money. He said he had a row with somebody who actually turned around to him and said, and he was trying to cut something. He said, it's only 8 million. And he goes, 8 million is a lot of money. And they don't see it that way, because they've been working in this kind of area for so long that for them that's just another little tick in the box. And I'm sure the government are the same, where they go, oh, that's just 100 million. Because that's the other thing they do. And they go, oh, we've dedicated 100 million to help young women and girls not to get raped. But there's another 1,000 men have just come in from France, you know. But they think throwing money at everything's the answer.
Yeah. Well, and just to remind everybody that 25% of your council tax goes on paying the employees of the council's pensions. So the idea that it's all going on, you know, send.
It's not.
And fixing your holes, or not fixing your holes in the road is ridiculous. Right, I've got to go, guys.
All right. He's off. Kelvin McKenzie, great to see you.
Nice.
Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the day.
And you, man.
Make sure you drink plenty of water, because obviously otherwise you might be dehydrated at some point. Francis Foster coming up. He's going to talk to us about being a teacher. We will be bringing you all sorts of goodies over the course of the next few days. We've got Plank of the Week coming up. We've got Plonk of the Week coming up. Should we get some news, Pooch, with the topless Edward Hughes?
Good morning, all. I'm Edward Hughes. Oh joy, Britain's absolutely melting. We've smashed the hottest May Day on record with a balmy 34 degrees Celsius plus. Because nothing says spring bank holiday like sweating in gridlock at Dover, while French border checks turn the M20 into a car park. Meanwhile, ex-SNP boss Peter Murrells finally nicked for pinching £400,000. Shocker. The Party of Independence can't even manage its own finances. And Jimmy Krankie didn't know a thing. Right. Richard III is promising £113 billion in shiny new spending. It's almost as if she thinks it's her money, not ours. Farage reckons the Russians hacked his phone and everyone's pretending social media isn't rotting the kids. Classic Britain. Boiling, broke, and brilliantly chaotic. Stay hydrated, legends. Laters, tigers.
I find that quite disturbing, you know.
Me too.
I think we should ban him from doing that again.
What?
Somebody actually put a note in. We've got on a Friday, we have Francis Foster's here, by the way. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Oh yeah, thank you
Good
very
to see
much,
you.
Mike. What
Good
a
to
pleasure
see
it is
you.
to be here. It's a nice place you've got.
It's not bad, is it? It's sort of homely. We like to think of it. People come in and they go, wow, this is nice, because people walk into studios and they kind of get a bit intimidated. A bit like your place. Down in, am I allowed to say where it is?
No, you're not, Mike.
No. All right.
There's a lot of people who don't like us.
Down in England.
No, well, we have the same thing here. We don't tell people where we are.
Yeah.
And then occasionally somebody blurts it out. Like, no! Like Kelvin, yeah. But where your studios are, it's a lovely setting. It's a great, you know, and when you walk in, you feel immediately kind of at home. But some studios you go into, you kind of, you can see people kind of bristling because they go, oh, there's cameras and I'm you know. Whereas this, we think we've created a sort of, you know, a nice space for people to kind of relax and, you know, not feel as if they're, you know, they've got a spotlight on them or something like that, you know?
Well, you were very amenable as well, Mike.
Well, that's true. Not everybody thinks that, by the way. But, so it's kind of you to say. But yeah, so talking of Edward Hughes being topless, we have another newsreader who does Fridays called Fiona McLeod. And I've got this from Darren, who says, it's a shame Fiona isn't reading the news this morning. I think you know what that means.
Yeah.
Where's Fiona?
Yeah.
Darren. Yeah, well, yeah, but she's not going to do it topless, is she?
No. No,
we can't have
she's
that.
got self-respect.
She has got self-respect, and she's Scottish as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
She's sort of shamed this morning by Nicola Sturgeon's story, which is, you know, I've asked everybody this question, so I'll ask you: have you ever had a partner who bought things that you didn't know they were buying, and you didn't notice they were buying, including cars and mobile homes, and, you know, pieces of jewellery and expensive pens, and you suddenly go, where are you getting all this money from?
It depends. It depends on what stage of the relationship it's at, you know, Mike? If we're coming to the end of the relationship and, you know, things aren't good and you just go, oh, you know what, have another Diamante pen, I don't care. But, you know, the most disgusting thing about this whole saga for me was the gentleman in question, £456,000 roughly, he embezzled.
Yeah.
He bought a motorhome.
Yeah.
Well, there's no. What about the cocaine? What about the parties?
I know.
What about the strippers?
Yeah. I know, it's disappointing in a way, isn't it?
It's not. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, I'm half Latin American, Mike, and if my boys had done that, they would have had a great time.
You're half Venezuelan, aren't you? Which I didn't know until the Venezuelan thing happened, and I saw you talking about it, going, actually, your mother is Venezuelan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is quite cool, actually. Because I don't know that many people. I've only met one other person from Venezuela in my life, and he was a drummer for the the Jonas Brothers.
Was he?
Yeah. And he used to listen to my shows. He was an Arsenal fan. When I used to do the overnight show at Talk Sport, he lived in LA, and he sort of became somebody that I got to know. And as a result, I went to a Jonas Brothers concert with my son, where we were the only men there, because it was all full of sort of 16-year-old teenage girls.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fine. You weren't working for the BBC, so you could be trusted.
And my son enjoyed it a lot, because he was about 16 at the time, so, you know.
Absolutely. He's now a big fan of the Jonas Brothers.
He's a big fan of the Jonas Brothers, yeah. But it is disappointingly mundane, isn't it? Luxury handmade 90th birthday card. You're not going to go, who are you having an affair with, are you?
No.
90th birthday card. Oak library ladder. Jamie Oliver acacia wooden spoon set. It's so dull.
It's so boring.
It's awful, isn't it? 2 Helly Henson men's vests. Huh? I mean, people have said, what's that phrase for somebody who's obsessed with buying stuff?
I'll put it up here.
I can't remember what the word is. Oh yeah, no, that's not it. That's people dying of cold weather.
Yeah. Oh no,
How do you keep you cool in the heat?
Yeah, actually, ask Francis about
yeah, here you go. How do you keep cool in the heat? Take your shirt off, 7%. Have a cold beer, 38%. Put a Magnum up your backside, 10%. I'm surprised that one's not winning, by the way.
No. Yeah.
Grin and bear it, 45%. Do you have any tips for surviving the heat?
Well, that did actually bring something up in my head. I was not the Magnum one. I was in Australia in Bondi, and I was walking with a friend of mine, and this was Bondi. It was about 25 degrees. There were all these Aussies. They're all buff. They're all ripped. They're all wearing these tight T-shirts. And then along the pathway came this big fat lad, gut hanging out, top off. And I leaned into my friend, looked at him, and went, "He's English." And she went, "You don't know that. You just can't say that." I went, "Trust me."
Yeah.
And as he walked past, big Geordie accent.
Fantastic.
You know, that's it. That's what it means to be British or Geordie.
It does. It absolutely does.
Representing.
I mean, I must say, though, walking around London yesterday, I was slightly perturbed to see a number of men who'd taken their shirts off and were literally just walking. This was a picture that somebody sent me from the Tube. This guy's on the Tube dressed like that.
That's our culture.
I mean, it's just horrible, though, isn't it?
No, it's our culture,
You like
mate.
it?
No, I don't. It's not that I like it. It's our culture. We all talk about. Nobody knows what it means to be English anymore. Nobody knows what it means to be British. That's what it means to be British.
Isn't that a bit depressing, though?
Well, you know, of course. Not every culture is all positive, Mike.
Because
You
when
know
I put out a tweet yesterday just saying, guys, I know it's hot, but could you mind keeping your shirt on? And loads of people were like, it's just chavvy now. It's the chavs have taken over. And I think it is. I think that's true. I just think, you know, there are certain things you shouldn't do.
No, this is what it means. Top off, even though you haven't been to the gym in 6 years.
Yeah.
You get on the special brew and you lay out on a park bench.
Yeah, I mean, I go to the gym now, but I still wouldn't take my top off because I don't look like I go to the gym. It just, you know, doesn't quite work. But let's talk about your book. You brought one in. Uneducated is the name of it. I didn't know this until you told me, obviously. You used to be a teacher.
Yeah, I was a teacher for nigh on 12 years.
Wow.
Actually, I wanted to, the book's called Uneducated, but I wanted to call it 12 Years a Teacher. And the head of Hodder and Staunton said, under no circumstances will we be publishing that book with that title.
Really? What,
Yeah.
because they couldn't have the slave reference? What?
Yeah, basically.
That's so pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah, because Uneducated is a good title. But anyway, so it's what happens when a broken system creates broken people and broken outcomes.
Yeah. So what kind of teaching did you do? Was it secondary, primary?
I did 6 years of secondary, English and drama, and then I retrained and then became a primary school teacher for 6 years.
And what was better?
Primary was better, although, believe it or not, primary was harder work.
Yeah.
No one actually believes that when I say that.
Yeah.
People can't believe that. But I taught in the roughest schools in East London, South London, and just outside of London. So I taught in really deprived schools.
Because I'm assuming if you're teaching secondary kids, if you've got anything about you, you can sort of corral them and you can convince them that you're the boss and all of that. Primary school, I think, is much more difficult because you've got younger kids that you can't do certain things with, I guess. You can't shout at them, you can't smack them anymore. My mother was a teacher, right? Primary school teacher.
Yeah.
In fact, she's done secondary school teaching as well. She used to slap the kids, you know. I'm not joking.
No, I know you're not.
She was like, you know, I'm talking about the sort of 70s, and you know, but they loved, the kids loved her. I'd go in, they'd be sitting on her knee, she'd be talking to them, telling stories. But she wouldn't hesitate if there was one of them playing up.
Yeah.
You know, and she told me a story once of when she first came, she was from Scotland originally, came down to England and she was teaching at a school in Victoria. and she slapped a girl around the face, right? And she was about 13 or something. And I said, well, what happened then? She was like, well, she didn't do it. She didn't do that again. I'm like, okay then. I mean, just a different world, right?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, if you did that now, I mean, you wouldn't even get near a kid. The problem is, Mike, is law and order, but behaviour in the classroom is at such a low point that it effectively drives a whole generation of teachers out from the classroom.
Yeah.
The average teaching career now lasts just under 5 years.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
And so what that actually means is that all of this talent, all of this experience that you get in the upper echelons of teaching or with experienced teachers that then trickles down and is shared, that is gone now.
So you don't have old teachers anymore,
No,
effectively?
no, you can't. You don't have old teachers. The problem is as well, like when your mum was doing it, the job was teaching. But now you're a teacher, you're a social worker, you're also an administrative assistant. You now as well are expected to do classroom displays.
Right.
And not only that, they want you to do 3D classroom displays. So then you're there at like 11 o'clock in the evening.
So you are, because a lot of them used to say that and go, you know, we have, because when I would have a go at teachers for having so many holidays, I'd be like, you know, it's not a hard job. You get all these holidays. And they'd go, oh yeah, but we all do like extra work. And I'd go, yeah, well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of dismiss it. But I mean, I guess there is some element of truth to that.
Teaching as the actual act of teaching is incredibly physically and mentally demanding, because you've got to think, you've got 30 kids in the classroom, you're responsible for all of them, you've got everything from a kid who has the potential to go to university in a primary classroom right the way through to a kid unable to write his own name. And then due to a policy of inclusion, you also have kids who potentially are non-verbal autistic in your classroom, and you have to plan a lesson, a maths lesson, for instance on algebra, which can cater to the brightest kid, to the kid with the lowest ability, and also plan a lesson for the autistic kid.
Yeah.
And you've got to prove that at the end of the lesson, everybody's come out learning something. And also you've got to...
And presumably you've also got a lot of kids now for whom English is not the first language.
Absolutely.
Right.
So then you need to prepare resources for them.
Yeah.
And if you work in a borough, like I worked in a very poor borough in East London, then there's going to be more of them. So that is extra work on top of that.
Yeah.
Then you've got behavioural difficulties, kids with behavioural difficulties. That basically means that, you know, they're little twats.
Yeah.
And so you've got to deal with them.
Yeah.
And it's a complete nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, I know from just my own kids' experience, they went to a school in not far from Hastings, a primary school. And when they went there, it was actually a really good school. But then they got a couple of Ofsted inspections and got a 1 rating, and suddenly everybody wanted to send their kids there, and the school kind of expanded to such a point that it actually got worse.
Yeah.
And so there were then too many kids, not enough teachers, and my kids used to say, you know, everybody knows the best way to get out of being in class is just to play up, and then they'll give you an iPad and you go and sit on your own.
Yeah.
And so the kids have worked that out at the age of 7, that, you know, the best way to get out of having to learn anything is just to be a pain in the arse. And there was one kid who was, you know, climb up on the roof, and they'd go, right, you're banned from the classroom for a week or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and he would just sit on his own with his iPad playing games. And, you know, so there's something wrong with the system, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's something wrong with the system in that there is literally no accountability, Mike.
Yeah.
And what actually happens is kids' education is being destroyed because you can't learn in a classroom because of these 2 or 3 people on average in a class who are persistently disruptive.
Yeah. So what made you decide to leave the profession then? Was there one particular thing that happened, or was it just a collection of things?
You know, it was a collection of things. I talk about it in the book. There was one instance where I taught a PE lesson, and boys were, and I taught year 6, which is 10, 11, so you have to separate boys and girls when they're getting changed. So the female teacher was with the girls, I was with the boys, supervising the boys. And there was the girl classroom here, or change room here, the boy change room here. There was a toilet in the middle, and there's a couple of people said that they wanted to go to the toilet whilst they were getting changed, so we let them do that. Anyway, long story short, someone defecated in the sink.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. And then what happened afterwards was it then got reported up the chain of command.
Right. Presumably it wasn't that hard to work out who'd done that.
Well, you say that, Mike, but there was an omerta in the classroom. There was 30 kids.
Yeah, but you must have known who'd got in there, though, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, but
Didn't know which one.
Didn't know which one. So what happened was this kind of fecal Hercule Poirot situation.
God, that's disgusting.
Yeah, trying to get. Yeah. I mean,
well, they are. Do you remember going back to your primary school ever as a kid?
Yeah.
When I used to go and see my mum, when I was at secondary school, I'd go back to the primary school, and everything seemed really small. You know, like the banister was like down here on the stairway, and all the desks were really tiny.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I thought they were all huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe the sink was low.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was one thing.
Yeah.
So what else?
I mean, I talk about this in the book.
Can you see the book quickly?
Good, absolutely. There you go.
Can Mike hold it up to the
Yeah, I can hold it up.
There you go. Hold it up, Mike.
There it
I was
is.
asking about it.
There it is. Very nice cover, actually.
Thank you. So there was one instance where I broke up a fight when I was supply teaching, in between teaching jobs. And you're not meant to do that, by the way, because if the kids report that you touched them or you grabbed them, then you're in trouble.
Right.
So I don't.
So what, you're supposed to just let them carry on fighting?
Yeah, pretty much. And then get a senior member of staff whilst they're kicking 7 shades of the proverbial out of one another.
Right.
But I decided to step in because one of the kids was going to get seriously hurt because the other one was bigger.
Yeah.
The bigger boy, so I got myself in between the two boys. The bigger boy then decided, I don't know, maybe he'd been watching a few Bruce Lee films, decided to launch a flying kick at the other boy. Now, obviously, I was in the way. The boy was 10 years old. He wasn't the biggest. So what he actually did, instead of connecting with the other boy's head, he connected with my testicles.
That's not nice.
No.
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 Crikey. I can't imagine anybody ever wanting to do that job in the first place. I mean, did you think it would be different when you went into it?
Did I think it would be different? Look, because you're young, it's like every young person has a romanticised idea of what the world is actually like.
Right.
And that comes down to professions. When you started as a journalist, I'm sure you had a romanticised notion of what it meant to be a journalist.
To be honest, I didn't really know. I mean, it's funny now because I talk to my own kids who are sort of late teens, early 20s, and you know, I try and imagine what they think about the world. And I just don't remember having any preconceptions of anything. I just remember just doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd sort of go, well, I'll do that today then. And then,
it's very zen of you, Mike.
Well, yeah, I think so. And I never really thought about, well, what we're going to do tomorrow. I don't know. Wait till the end of today first, and then we'll see what we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't really, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That people do have that sort of, you know, wonderful rose-tinted view of the world.
Oh, yeah, and it's idealistic, and, you know, you're going to make a difference. And you do make a difference to some kids' lives. That's completely undeniable.
Yeah.
But the reality is that after a while, it just grinds you down.
Right.
It grinds you down, the behaviour, what's going on, and what's going on. And the reality is that you realise that you are never going to be able to overcome the challenges that the kids face out of school. The vast majority of times, kids play up because their home life is difficult. Yeah. Or, which is more and more prevalent now, the fatherlessness crisis.
Yeah.
I could easily go, particularly with the boys, the ones who are playing up, I'd be, dad's not at home, dad's not at home, dad's not at home, dad's not at home. And that's a real challenge.
Right.
Because particularly boys, they crave positive male role models. And when there's no positive male role models, they will go to other male role models, particularly negative male role models. That's why we see the rise of Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
That's a part of the fatherlessness crisis. And that's also why we see kids joining gangs. Because if you've got to think about if you're one of these kids, you don't see dads at home, men at home. You don't see men in your local community. You go to school. Most of the teachers are women.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're a young boy, you want and you crave that type of male camaraderie, male attention. And so the only people who really give it are people in gangs. And what gangs do is they're very, very smart. They groom these kids.
Yeah.
And what they particularly do is they target kids with learning difficulties or low ability children.
Yeah.
Because if you're a low ability kid, every time you go into the classroom, you fail. You fail every single day. And you've got no history of being good at something or being respected. So these kids are demoralised right from the very get-go. Their self-esteem is through the floor. And all of a sudden you have someone going, you know what, why don't you take this here?
Yeah.
And then
And
we
we'll
can
give
hang
you
out.
praise for that. Yeah.
And we'll give you praise.
What about sport, though? Doesn't sport play a role in some way?
Yeah, sport does play a role in some way, but it's, how many people...
You might not be good at it, I suppose.
Yeah, you might not be good at it. And also as well, how many of them are going to be good enough at it to actually use that as a leverage to get out of the situation that they find themselves in?
Yeah.
So the reality is, like, for a lot of kids, that's why they end up in gangs. And it's sad.
Yeah. So you say in this book why you should never become a teacher.
Yeah.
Is it that bad? So you would literally say to somebody who you met as a result of this book, whatever, you don't even think about it, just don't do it.
I would say number one, the title is slightly tongue-in-cheek. It's a wry comment. But I would say if you could do any other job, then don't do it.
Right.
Then don't do it. Because the behaviour from the kids is, from a small minority of kids, is terrible. Senior management, unfortunately, they don't really back you up. So you feel incredibly isolated and alone. The parents always, unfortunately, now take the kids' sides.
Yeah.
And it's quite a lonely job. It's quite a lonely job. And then you have to make sure that you can get all of these kids to fulfill their potential and hit their targets. And it's not particularly realistic, which is why more and more teachers are leaving the profession in their droves. And that is a real tragedy, Mike, because we talk about young people. We talk about young people on trigonometry.
Talk about them all the time, don't they?
Yeah, we talk about young people on trigonometry. You talk about young people. And the young people face significant challenges. We have to be honest about that. And we say, look, they need to be better. Why are they like this? Why are they like that? Well, a significant part of that is teachers. If you want better kids and kids who are prepared for the real world, as it were, and the world of work, you need better teachers. And in order to do that, we need to start having a conversation about education. And we need to stop with the nonsense and go, look, how do we solve the behavioural crisis in schools? Because if we can solve that, I'm telling you right now, most teachers would stay.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about life in general. Trigonometry, brilliantly successful podcast. If you don't know it, you should know it. Both you and Konstantin Kissin you make a fantastic pairing. I've been on the show a couple of times. You've interviewed some incredible people. I mean, I was going to say who have you got on the list that you haven't done, but there's not many, I suppose, is there?
Well, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon Musk. We'd love to interview Elon. There have been times where there was...
It's almost come.
It's almost, but it can't, I've heard he's quite busy. So, Elon we'd love to do. We'd love to do Dave Chappelle, these big names, Ricky Gervais, all of these types of people.
Right.
But,
you'll get them, won't you? Because you do get them. You do get those great names, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we do. And because what we do, Mike, is we have a conversation.
Yeah.
And we don't do what mainstream media does, which is we're going to present this person in this way.
Yes.
We're going to have a honest conversation. Yeah. If they raise something that we disagree with or we want to explore a bit more, we'll challenge.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, we go to our audience, this is the person, these are their views, and then you make up your own mind.
Yeah.
And we've interviewed...
And that's the beauty of the independent media, it seems to me, because you're unhindered by time. And time is a real problem, I think, for the mainstream media, because I watch less and less of it now. But one of the things I do watch is Laura Kuenssberg on a Sunday, just because it's Sunday and I'm kind of going, all right, let's see who's saying what at the beginning of the week. And there's always a time constraint, and she never asks the right questions, and you left going, why didn't you ask them this, or why have you let them go having said that? And whereas I think what I do as well, you keep people on until they say something interesting.
Yeah.
In a way, almost. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also, people are far more interesting. People go, why didn't you challenge this person really hard and just going really tough on them? And well, number one, I believe that's actually virtue signalling.
Yeah.
Because
you're making it about you then, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so outraged and disgusted at this person in front of me. And number two, if you want people to show you who they really are, you give them space, you let them breathe, you let them talk, and they will invariably show you.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they'll walk right into the sort of the road crash, if you like, and create it for themselves, which is a far better way of doing it than of you trying to make it happen.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Of course, because it looks, the moment you start playing that game, which the mainstream media, as you know, have been playing for a long time now, it looks deeply manipulative.
Yeah.
And people don't like it.
No.
Because they don't like being manipulated, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of this whole kind of right-wing, thing going on at the moment, where Reform and Restore are going at each other hammer and tongs, and every day there's some kind of massive, conflagration on social media? Musk, funnily enough, now getting involved, saying Restore Britain's the answer. People calling Nigel Farage a fake. The Restore people being accused of being racist. I mean, it's a right old mess, it seems to me.
Look, it is a mess. I also think it's important to bear this in mind. 9% of the UK population is on Twitter.
Yeah.
The vast majority... My dad is actually from Ashton in Makerfield, which is next to Makerfield.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. My dad's a Wiganer.
Yeah, people kept telling me that it's not Makerfield, it's Ashton in Makerfield. You should call it the right thing. But it's actually a new constituency, isn't it?
It's a new constituency, but my dad is from Ashton in Makerfield. That's where we grew up. My uncle used to play for Oral Rugby Club, all the rest of it. So that's where my English family are from. So I know that area fairly well.
Right.
In fact, the first time my dad took me there in the 80s, I was 6 years old, and I started crying and saying the words, "I want to go back to England."
Well, it is the North.
Yeah, exactly. I went there and I was absolutely horrified at what I was confronted with. But I think it's really important, and because I let myself sometimes get carried away with this, and I get very angry at what certain people say, and particularly how the right is now just openly supporting not the right, but there's certain fringe people on the right tweeting anti-Semitic things, people who I know, just deeply hateful and racist. And I find it makes me angry, and it actually sometimes ruins my day. But I think this is very important to remember. 9% of the UK population are on Twitter.
Yeah.
Things on Twitter feel like they're a big deal. But then you step out into the real world and most people aren't really aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's always really important. Like, at one point, I was ensconced in the comedy industry. I was a stand-up comedian gigging 6 nights a week. Comedy was still is very woke, very progressive, very liberal. And I would go on Twitter and I'd see Jeremy Corbyn and people retweeting Jeremy Corbyn in the 2019 general election. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, I think, maybe Corbyn's going to absolutely smash this. And everybody was riled up.
I went into work the night of the election to do an overnight election show, thinking he'd won.
Yeah.
I thought he'd won. I thought the people were reporting big turnouts, reporting things that they'd never seen before, people queuing up around the block, to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. And I'm going, crikey, and nothing could have been more wrong.
Yeah. So what happens with social media is it's a world all of its own.
Yeah.
And you can easily let your view of the world and reality become distorted because you spend too much time on a tablet and not enough time in the real world.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you walked around Ashton in Makerfield, which is still predominantly working class, 96% white, the people who are in that constituency, they're not worried about what people are talking about online. They'll be worried about some of it, like immigration. They're really worried about hospital waiting lists.
Yeah.
Why is it when I took my nan to A&E, we had to wait for 6 hours for her to get a broken wrist looked at? That's not right.
Yeah.
Potholes,
Yeah.
low-level crime, local services, schools. Those are the things that we don't talk about on social media because it doesn't generate outrage and attention.
Right.
But if you go into the real world and people have got a family and they've got kids and they're just trying to make ends meet, that's what they care about. They care about the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
They don't care as much about this other stuff. And I think sometimes in the media we do forget that.
Yeah, I think so. And the Westminster bubble doesn't help either to a large extent. But there we are. The book's called Uneducated, My Life as a Teacher and Why You Should Never Become One, which is a great title, by the way. Francis,
couple of comments.
Couple of comments, go on then. Let's have a quick look. Uneducated, sounds like a good book, says MLB. Peace to you. Mike, how much does the book cost, says Simon? I don't know. Does it say on the book?
You can get 20% off on Amazon if you buy it as a hardback, and then I think so it's around 14 quid. And if you want, you can get it on Audible, you can get it on audiobook, which will be cheaper, and then you can listen to my dulcet tones when you're going for a run or in the car or whatever else.
Excellent. There we go. One more. I did 10 years. One boy sat on the stage in the dining hall, then wiped his arse with the curtains. Very nice, says Fraser. 13 years old, suspended for 2 weeks, then back in school. Blair's era of non-exclusion. Yeah. Sounds awful, that. Bloody hell.
One last one.
Who knew? Finally, Squared Comedy says, great to see Francis on. I have been listening to Trigger since 2020. I once worked for Trigger selling ads, but I got too busy at work and it never worked out. Sorry about that, Francis.
Yeah.
You're great.
Thank you so much.
Well, listen, trigonometry is brilliant. So if you haven't, as I say, seen it before or looked at it or listened to it or watched it, go ahead and do so. And I'll see you again soon, I dare say.
I'd love to come back on mine.
It'd be lovely to have you on regularly. I mean, you know,
definitely.
feel free. You don't even have to come in every time. You can do it down the line if you wish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be great. We are here every day, 7 to 10. We're pretty much out now. It's 10 o'clock. We've got time for Pooch's Pooch.
I'm going to go to a funeral.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah.
So Pooch's Pooch is a dead duck. Let's do. This is the one where they're all keeping themselves cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is.
You're so sad.
That's one. That is definitely the best one. Amazing. Oh yes, this is a little Labrador puppy. It's cool.
Aww.
Yeah.
I got that very paddington. That Malinois.
Brilliant. That's the ice cream. I could do with one of those at home, actually.
Mate, I'd love one of them.
It's one of those things every single year when it gets like this, I go, I should have bought an air conditioner. And every year I don't buy one.
But I've got an air conditioner in my flat.
Brilliant.
Oh, would you?
Brilliant. Fantastic. Great. Well, listen, another great show, Pooch. Thanks to all the really good guests. Thanks to Kelvin McKenzie for coming in and annoying everybody. Robert Jobson, of course, as well. Russell Quirk this morning too. And Nick Buckley. Who else? Nigel Pawley as well. Yeah. And Godfrey Bloom as well. And Francis Foster. Thank you very much indeed. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much,
We
Mike.
shall see you soon. And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Don't be late.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.